sprinter. You know, he went 10.6 last year. You know, so I'm sure he's looking to try to go 10.5 and have a chance to finish up strong. So it's my job now to to bridge the gap with the knowledge and the learning before he gets here. But he wanted to finish up with that experience, and we'll try to make sure we catch him up as soon as possible. But he's he's physically gifted a little bit, so he won't be as far behind with some things.
How are you able to work with him now? I mean, you guys doing Zoom calls?
Yeah, we'll Zoom call. We'll do things like that to catch him up, to make sure he's on pace. Obviously, it's not like being here, but at least, mentally, he'll be able to try to be up to speed as much as possible. And then when the summer comes, we'll get going on it a few weeks to try to make sure he's in good shape before we start camp.
You said Jermaine has a knack for football. It looks like he plays offense on defense. Is that a real thing for a corner?
Yeah, some guys can naturally track the ball, can naturally go get the ball. He does that, man. He's comfortable with playing the ball in the air. Instincts, some people call football get it. He just has it. He has that hit factor of playing the game. So now go develop it, groom it, get it ready for the next level, because it's a different step. But he has a natural confidence and a natural knack for the ball and being able to be a football player. So I'm looking forward to working with him.
Can you coach those guys differently, or do you coach everybody the same?
You got to coach everybody differently. You know what I mean? Because some people are more natural at things than others. You know what I mean? Like I said, you can tell he's a high production guy in high school. So playing the ball in the air, the balance and body control when the ball is in the air, judging the flight of it, you have to have a natural confident first to do that. Now we can tweak the techniques and do it, because you got to be in the right position, but it has to be a comfort level because they're throwing the ball to the receiver, not to you. So you have to be able to torque your body and things down the field to be able to go make a play on the ball or get it knocked down. He has a little knack for that, so I look forward to working.
And what have you seen from him so far?
Great, good kid, works hard. It's still early.
Yeah.
So he's just getting here, but works hard, excited to learn. Like I said, competitive. Great personality, so I'm looking forward to it.
Tim, entering spring, what's kind of the pecking order at corner with some of the returning guys like Denzel, Jordan, Jair? Just kind of get into the pecking order if you have one.
Right now, no pecking order now. Denzel is really the only true returning starter that we have right now. What we got to do now, we got to create a competition. We got to open this thing up, competition, let guys go earn jobs and go play and go compete. That's what it's about. So we'll try to make sure we move guys around, because we got to make sure they're in the right spot, and we got to make sure the competition is right, and guys are in the right spot with stuff. So that's what we'll try to take a look at this week.
Tim, there was an announcement yesterday. I don't know if it's official yet. Can you address a new addition to the room or not?
Can't do it.
Okay. Let me ask you in a very general way. How important is it to get a veteran guy in the room that could be potentially a plug-and-play guy?
But it's always good to get guys, to upgrade the room. So going through the recruiting process, is at the level that we're at here, is like the NFL. You're always trying to get the elite guys in the country here because of the competition that you're going to be playing, and the expectation that's here. So during the recruiting process, we're trying to get the best guys in the country to make sure the room is deep, make sure the room is always upgraded, and make sure we keep the competition good. Just because, with numbers low and things happen during the season, you want to have guys ready to go and ready to step in.
And can I ask one general question? You see this all the time. What is so hard about getting guys to turn their head toward the ball?
You got to be a natural thing with it. That's the all-level things. You see it in the NFL, you see it in college. That's a thing that you just got to work and try to get guys recruited that's comfortable with that, because it's a last-second thing that you just have to work enough to get guys in that comfort level of doing it. Really no good answer for it. It's just something you got to work on to try to get that corrected and get that comfort level during games.
Because if you do that, you're generally not going to get called for. You can get away with more contact if your head's turned.
Yeah, but it's a fine line with that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you have your head turning, you don't have the guy located, you don't track the ball, and they catch it, and they still running when they catch it. So it's like there's a lot go into it. You know what I mean? So it's something that we got to continue to work on and get better at, and we will do that and keep trying to progress in that area, because the number one thing, you got to be able to touch the ball down the field at the top of the route.
What does Jair need to do, Jair Brown need to do to see the field a lot? Obviously, I know you guys like to talk about, guys make their biggest improvement from year 1 to year 2. He played as a true freshman, but what does Jair need to do in your opinion?
But the same thing, it's just the growth step. Take what you did in your freshman year, and now we got to grow from it with that. Understanding the game, keep developing your body, how much technical sound you can get throughout the spring, getting stronger, all those things that go in, and now can you go apply it with the maturation process, and he's growing, he's in a good mental space. You just have to now continue to grow with that and put that into action.
Tim, would you rather have just two guys lock down the job, or would you rather have a situation where maybe you're rotating three guys to two spots?
It doesn't matter, man. It's a good thing or bad thing. It can be either way. When you have three guys rotating, sometimes the depth is good. You know what I mean? Or it could be guys still need to come along. Because the thing about it, you always have to prepare for, the numbers, man. Out there, the numbers get low sometimes. You get a guy that's out or get a guy that's then you're short on numbers out there. You want to have the next guy with some experience and develop to try to be able to play and get put in situations that they may not be ready to get in. So you got the experience really helps when those moments come.
You talk about.
I don't know if this is a fair question or not, but it seemed like things started to spiral in terms of health the moment Jordan went down, and then it never really got right. Coming into the fall, just based on what you'd seen from guys throughout the summer and in spring, how many game-ready guys did you feel like you had?
It's hard. It's hard to tell that because it's hard to be game-ready in the spring. You know what I mean? Game-ready is usually when you get in the game some. So, but the development and the preparation for it helps. And then, like you said, after the injury, it spiraled down, so guys were in and out a little bit. So that's why you need the numbers, because you need that so you can keep developing guys, because those are the things you got to control, the controllables. Sometimes you can't control when guys are not available due to setbacks, so you have to have the next guy ready. So that's my job, to keep trying to develop these young men and try to get them ready so when the numbers call, they can be ready to make a play.
Kind of to that point, is it an advantage to only have one locked-in starter, like you said with Denzel, to kind of know that you have to get everyone reps in this process?
At a place like this, it's just a situation you're in, man. It's you want to develop guys in the spring, and you will see, but see, that's the level of your competition. So everybody have to compete. So you bring in guys to always kind of compete and elevate the room, and some guys may beat some guys out. That's a part of this thing too. That's the thing that just because you was a starter a year ago doesn't mean it's going to be this year. Just because you was a backup this year doesn't mean you're going to stay in that role. Roles are always constantly changing. And that's on the development, the growth, and the accountability that we all have and do in the production. So that all will kind of evolve on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
I know you've been doing this for a while, but what did you think that you learned from year one to year two that you'll like to use moving forward, that first year going to the second year?
Well, you can never have enough guys ready. You know what I mean? Like you gotta always be constantly having guys ready, because like you said, we had some, the numbers start changes on a little bit. So to get guys ready for different spots, for different sides of the ball, different positions, getting enough quality reps where guys could be healthy one minute and not the next. You just have to make sure that you have enough balance of getting guys that are ready to play or playing ready to go, but then the other guys enough to be ready when you thrust it in that moment. You got enough that you can go function in a game day environment.
How do you get ready, too, with the new season with Coach Knowles, of being on the same page, getting better on that same page, and limiting those explosive plays like you all wanted to do?
Yeah, well, that's just on the growth process of being in the second year of the system. So that's going to be with the guys as coaches. We got another year together. The players are into the system now. So now some of the mistakes and things that showed up will get, minimized just because of the experience, because now those guys that you saw playing are not true freshmen anymore. They're not young guys anymore. They have 4, 5, 6 games under their belt that they can use as experience. So hopefully with that, the maturity, the growth process, the learning, the experience, it helps eliminate those things, and it helps turn that into a positive aspect.
Does it also help you, Tim, to know who you can and can't put in situations? I mean,
yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Because it just looked like some guys were uncomfortable in those last 2 games of the year, kind of like, in the spotlight, so to speak, maybe, on a particular play or two.
Yeah, well, I think that's just part of football. You can kind of pull that up anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you watch the playoffs now in football, that's just part of it. But you just keep growing, you keep developing stuff, man, and you keep trying to put guys in many game day situations if you can, so they can be as prepared at practice in the moment. So when the moment comes, they can try to function in it. It's not a never-ending process. It's always an ongoing process with that. So you just keep trying to tweak it, work it, and trying to find the right fit and right combination of guys that can kind of maximize and get what you want out of that.
When y'all bring in a guy, like y'all got a guy coming in, looks like, who's played, how do you watch that from your room standpoint to make sure the room doesn't get messed up, or are you just looking for competition?
Listen, we competing. We're not really looking for the room. The guys competing. We just, with anything, when you bring in, we had Jermaine, we got Calvin, we got guys. Guess what? There's going to be some more guys next year coming in. Guess what? In 2 more years, there's going to be some more guys coming in. That's just what it is. You try to bring the best guys in, and you try to bring guys in that are high character, great competitors, great work ethic, the love for the game, want to play at the highest level, and then it always sorts its way out. That's part of it, So you want to bring it in because you want guys that like the competition, and you got to have guys ready. So that part always just sorts its way out over time.
Tim, do you have any kind of general philosophy about playing true freshmen at corner, and are there certain attributes that you're looking for to say, okay, you have to be able to do this if I'm going to put you on the field in year one?
Yeah, you don't want to. I think it's all different from each situation. Theoretically, you don't want to have to put a true freshman out there and do things, but some guys are ready for it. And if you're ready for it and you show that you have it in your competitive nature, you're physically ready, your mental state of mind, you have the maturity level, because some guys mature faster than others. If all those things fit, you understand the game, you have knowledge of the game that's a little more advanced, then you give that guy the opportunity. That's the right way to do it. Sometimes younger guys take a little longer to get that. So you just have to go on a case-by-case basis. Are you physically ready? Some guys will walk in and be 170 pounds. Some guys will walk in and be 190. All those things you have to put into play. Can they physically hold up? Mentally, can they apply the things to the game? Can they endure the long season? Can they fight through nicks and bruises? Can they compute the more complicated or more knowledgeable system than they had? There's a lot of factors that go in to try to get the product ready to be able to go perform on Saturday.
How do you feel about the overall scholarship numbers at this position? I think last year you guys had about 6, and there were times where early on that came into effect where guys were hurt and that you had to really play depth. This year looks like you might have a little more. Just what you're feeling on just the depth that you're
we always want to have the numbers. The numbers are what they are. Like you said, it always, you'll have it right by the end of spring, go to summer. But I think that, you always want as many numbers as you can on the back end, just because you do so much running, you do so, those guys play a pivotal part, and things just always happen in the back end, no matter where you're at, so you want enough numbers to be able to, because sometimes you have, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys on the field at one time, and they're interchangeable some positions, so you want to make sure you just got enough. But the numbers always take care of itself. You'll, long as when we get to, camp and start up game day, we got the numbers right. We'll kind of go from there. Like nowadays, things just change a lot. So you want to have enough depth, though, that you can get the right guys ready for it, which I think we will.
Do you ever have an ideal number in your mind? Like if there's a perfect scenario?
No, because guys are interchangeable some too, man. Perry talked about that stuff. We got guys that are interchangeable that we can do as we need. That's why the secondary works together. You don't always do it or sit, but we you got moving parts that you can move if necessary with that to get it the way you want it.
Tim, I'm sorry if somebody asked you about this already, but with the injuries that Jordan and Denzel had early on, and they sort of lost August and periods throughout the year, how much did you think that impacted the development? I want to say setback, or that's up to you to evaluate.
Yeah, it does. You get better by reps and playing time and practice time. You get better. So if you miss a lot of time, it'll stunt your growth a little bit. So then now we got to go back and try to escalate it. But it is what it is. You got to kind of deal with the situation, and you got to go with it, and that's why you always got to have the next guy ready. The thing that we try to do is make sure they take care of their bodies, make sure they're, everybody's, and that's why you recruit. That's why you try to get the depth in the room, and prepare guys, because some things you can't control, and you got to deal with the uncontrollable. Like, you don't know, like going into the season next year, you don't know how many games a guy's going to play. You don't know if a nick or bruise is going to keep him out for a certain situation. So you just have to try to develop it all. It does set you back some when you're young, but you have to have the next guy up, and then have to have those guys ready to fight back through it. And it is what it is. It's part of the game.
Yeah, it seemed like once Denzel, he was probably as healthy as Denzel for the Peach Bowl, and I think you can tell me it seemed like that was also his best game of the year.
Yeah, he did a good job toward the end of the year. Started doing a little better. It was healthy. Obviously he had the stuff that he had to work through, but again, that's part of it, man. So that's a sport what we sign up for a little bit. We just got to try to manage and help navigate it.
Josh obviously might have to factor in at center pretty quick. It seems like Matt and Donovan are sticking new guards. So what do you see how the four guys in the recruiting class?
I'm just glad that they're here early with all those guys. The progress and the development of offensive linemen it's long and it's tough. So those guys all coming in mid-year is good to get acclimated to everything, to getting into the weight room with Coach Mick, getting with Kayla in the meal and doing those things. So that's the biggest thing. Digesting the installs and the things that we can get into in the classroom we'll be doing, and ultimately getting to spring football and just kind of sit and play the game. But outside of that, I'm just excited we can get them all here right now early.
Coach Day said Matthew Jones is sticking at guard. What went into that decision? And then talk about, I guess, the evaluation process and the search for a new center.
Well, Matt just made a decision that he wanted to come back and get another year better and be ready for the next level. And he's all in. He trained really well, had a really good attitude about himself going into the bowl game. And then, we talked about it after the bowl game and then coming out. And when guys make that decision and it changes, it's palpable. Like you can sense it in his training right now. He's focused, because for him it was a big decision of should I stay, should I go, and when I come back, what am I working on? And that's our job and my job to have a plan for him. Like, here's the deficiencies, here's the things you want to work on, and then we start attacking those things, right? For the rest of those guys, that tone's never going to change. It's the same thing every year, whether you have returning guys that have started, not started, played. Like, we're going to play the 5 best. And so that's what the winter leading up to, and then spring football gets into through the summer. And as we get to the fall, and then by the time we tee it up in Bloomington, in the fall, we'll know who the 5 guys are.
You're the most unsettled position of probably anybody on the team. How do you feel about it?
That makes us the hungriest, so I'm excited. Right? I mean, I come here and sit at the table last year, and you get thrown out. Well, you got an All-American guy here, and you got a guy here, and you got this with Dewan and Paris and those guys, and that was all great. We had a great year. We worked really well together. Moving into it now, that's the coaching part of it. We got some younger guys or less inexperienced guys, but they're all hungry. They all want to be good. They all want to get coached. And so for you able as a coach, that's the exciting part about coaching. It's we get to go, right? And so is it this guy here? Do we move him here? We'll figure that out along the way. But the guys competition is really good, and open slots for those guys that some we didn't know were going to be there or not. And as the dust settles, now we know there's open slots at some guys, and so getting a chance to see those guys compete and battle that out on top of with really good players. I mean, we got good players here. We lost good players, and we'll replace them with good players.
It's been these 7 months. I can tell you, so obviously you can't answer this, but if you had a game, do you have any idea what your line would look like right now?
5 guys.
I would hope.
Right. No, outside of that, no. To speculate or dive into that, no. I mean, we were back, obviously being off the road and getting a chance to be around these guys and the limited football that we get to do, but the weight room and those things. I'm just looking at, we go all the way back to elementary. I mean, we've talked this offseason about, I read Tony Dungy's book back in the day, The Quiet Strength, and he talks about when Paul Hackett became the new coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. And he's installing the West Coast offense with Bill Walsh, and he starts with 22Z in, and he's looking at Joe Montana, who's won MVPs and Super Bowls. And he's saying, well, I got to teach this guy that. He knows it better than me. He installs it, and you turn around, and the guy's got 3 pages of notes that could teach it better than he did, but he wanted to know the why, the details, and the base elementary fundamentals. So that's what we've gotten back to with all of our guys, whether you're Donovan and Matt, who played a lot, or Josh, or Enoch, or these true freshmen coming in that haven't played. we got to get back to basics and fundamentals and build from there. And then how far can you go and can you climb is based off how well they execute and operate.
You know your guards.
Yeah, we've got guys. Yeah, we've got guys that play guards. It's a beautiful thing.
The run game coordinator role. How much does that go hand in hand with the offensive line? How do you imagine balancing those?
I mean, that's our world. I mean, we start there. So same deal. Just like I said last year, like I had to kill another tree and get a new business card. But our staff, just in general now, I mean, you go from Brian and now with Tony and with Corey and then with Key coming in and myself, like there's zero egos or issues in that of like, well, this is my job and this is my job. Like we all want to build this thing together and continue to do that. So, what does that mean through the eyes of the offensive line? Yeah, it's probably good that they're sitting there saying, all right, the run game plan and what we're doing was seen through our eyes because coaches got input on it. And then you build that, but there's not a new avenue that has to go down that may take away from the technique or fundamentals or those things with our guys up front.
What are you most excited about with Brian as OC?
I think anytime you guys get new opportunities to kind of expand and grow, you get it. You all in the profession, you grow. You start as an intern, or I started an intern and a GA, and then a full time, and then you start adding titles with more responsibility. You're able to expand and grow. And so for him, I mean, he's played ball at a high level here. He's played ball in the National Football League. He's coached at a high level, recruited at a high level. And now for him to have more input and be able to have more of his stamp on it, as you would say, I'm excited because he's a damn good football coach. And so we're all going to be part of that. So just had a great year working with all these guys last year. It was fun, being the one new guy on our side of the ball. We had no issues that way because we worked well together. And so now him getting a chance to expand and grow is awesome for all of us.
Sorry if you've been asked this. Ryan Day said that Donovan's going to stay at guard. I thought there was some thought that maybe he might kick out to tackle. Is that a good sign for how you feel about the tackles at this point?
I mean, yeah, it's a good chance for all those young guys. We got Josh has played a little bit. You got Zen was played some, sparingly a little bit. And then you look at like George, and you look at the new guys coming in. Like you get a chance for a lot of these young guys to go operate at the tackle position and see what happens. So, I think we just said that, like we're starting today. Who's playing the game? Like out of 5 guys, I don't know who they are yet, but there'll be 5 of them. So I'm just excited to see what happens in the competition and you're sitting there behind a guy that's an incumbent guy, or I'm behind Paris Johnson. I'm fighting my butt off. I'm training because my number could be called at some point, an injury or whatever. Well, now Paris is no longer there. Like now it's go time. Similar to talking about with Brian, like how much can I grow, what can I show? I'm ready to take the next step and do that. So these guys will have a good spring.
And Brian didn't want to get too much into who's going to be moving around, even though he did a little bit. But if there's a thought that Josh Frye is your best tackle, should he move from right to left?
You got to see how guys function that way, right? I mean, some guys are right brain and left brain. Some guys are left brain. Some guys are, internal guys can play guards in both sides. That's just a feel thing right now, so we'll figure that out. But we're going to play our 5 best. We're 6 best. I mean, at the end of the year, at some point last year, Josh was playing tight end. So he's in a left-handed stance one play, a right-handed stance the next play. Those are all things that we got to figure out through the spring. And we will, but I mean, right now they're getting big and strong and back with Nick and letting those young guys grow and get stronger that way. And then the fundamental component will add as we get closer to spring that way. But yeah, I mean, not dodging your questions, like I just don't know right now, other than I'm excited to see who steps up and who fights and who battles. And new guys coming in. We got Victor coming in, so where's he going to end up? What's he going to end up doing? Pressing guys for? Just excited about the competition.
Can we go through some of the guys individually and what you like and what you need to see between now and the season starts?
Well, I just think it goes in phases. I just talked to my guys about this, so I won't go generally each specific guy, but as you look just through phases, like year 1 of college football for a lineman, you learn how to play college football. How to show up to meetings on time, how to train, how to be at the weight room, how to get with Kayla and organize your meal and get stronger and faster, right? Year 2, you figure out how to play your position, and then by year 3, you play your position. That's the general progression of that. So then as you've put guys into those phases in our room, and you got those young guys like Tegra and Carson and George that they came in last year and just trying to keep their head above water of when am I with Mick on Tuesday, and then when is the meeting, and when is that? Those guys now, as they get into this spring, can actually start playing offensive line, right? They're bigger, they're stronger, they've acclimated to game plan terminology, to defenses and those things. So those young guys there, are just a step a little bit ahead of the guys that just got here, because now you talk about those 4 incoming true freshmen that all came mid-year. I mean, they're waking up every morning panicking, looking at their phone, like hoping the alarm went off at the right time. And then how am I getting over from the dorm? So they're in a completely different realm. They're all going to be really good players. We feel like we can develop those guys good, but that's kind of your young group. That intermediate group of those guys now is where guys can step up, and that's what I'm excited about. All those is like, go perform, go play. You came here to play, you want to be a player. So you're looking at guys like, you know, like Josh Frye and Enoch and Zin, and you got Ben back there, and Tootie, and some of those younger guys that are coming into year 3 and 4, and Jacob, right? Now they're stepping in saying, all right, now I really want to be a big part of this thing. They know how to line up, they know how to set up in the weight room, they know what the meetings are like. Now I just got to step up and perform. And then you go kind of further to guys that have played more ball. I mean, you look at Donnie and Matt right now in that phase of what have they done? Well, they've played a lot of ball and they've been in big-time games, so they understand as that younger phase as a coach, you're telling them, like, all right, this can get you beat. This is what you don't want to do versus a good player. They've experienced that. They've had that friction a little bit. So now what are they concentrating on? They can be a little more pinpointed into, like I said, Matt Jones can come back and say, you know what, I need to work in A, B, and C. I can be really targeted there because the rest of the stuff's like habitual. It's like brushing his teeth. You know, Donnie the same way. Like Donnie's now, you know, played a little bit as a freshman. Sophomore year, he was the guy. Junior year, now what am I doing? Like, I'm the guy. What can I really hone in on, whether it be my hands, whether it be my footwork and those things. And so having a plan for each of those guys in each of those realms is really good until we get to spring, and then they just go play the game.
Just you described it several times as being excited about what's heading into March and April. Is that purely what you feel, or is there nervousness, uncertainty? You don't know how it's going to maybe completely play out.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of uncertainty just because they haven't played, right? But no, that's sheer excitement because like that's the coaching component of it. It's finding out what a guy does really well, and then where can that help us, or find out, oh, there's a wart he may have. How do we clean that up, or how do we fix that, or maybe who do we put him next to ease stress or concerns or questions or whatever that may be. I mean, that's what I said. Like,
hey, folks, we have lunch in the players.
This ain't pro football. This is, I mean, you're developing guys here, right? It's not a new year. You can cut a guy or move a guy, or you're not happy with what you got. This is developing guys, and so that is genuinely fun for me. That's why I like this level a lot. You know, a guy that comes in the summertime and just learning the process of it, and then all the way up through the bowl prep. I mean, he's another guy like Tegra we talked, and we kept up. I'd keep him up a lot. He wasn't always down on the scout team. He was up. He'd do some travel stuff. And by the end of bowl prep, you'd be using and watching clips of him versus our starting defense, saying, like, that's a true freshman doing that. Like, that's the process. You've been working and going through, and his understanding, and then, now you build strength and you build size and those things. So he's just a worker. Like, the best part about him is how he's just supposed to keep working. And so that's going to give him a shot to compete, to get on the field like a lot of the rest of these guys.
Did you consider at the tackle spot very nicely asking Paris Johnson to stay for another year?
Yeah, so I've always done this. Ryan's really good about this, and I've been fortunate to be around good guys and more here than others. So where every year you have a guy that considers, should I stay or should I go, with eligibility left. You just give those guys the information that the people we trust from the next level, and say, here's the thought, here's what they think. You make the decision best for you. We're their biggest fans. So if Paris would have said, yeah, I want to come back and become, whatever, then we would have done what we're doing with Matt right now. Here's our plan. Here's how we're going to get it done. We're going to work that way. He obviously didn't do that, so now we're talking to P all the time, and Mike's in there zooming, and we're still coaching and helping those guys because we go through so much stuff in this meeting room, and then on the field, and obviously in games and those things. Like, you genuinely become, as we talked earlier, like, excited about coaching these guys because of what you put in it together. And he's, him, and I talked to Wanda yesterday, a little bit after his day, had a good day, and Luke down there training and doing those things with those guys. So you give them the information, they make the decision, and then you help them as best you can, as much as you can, and continue to do that, because that's what they did for you as a player.
Luke Montgomery's a guy who made it.
Two more questions.
On the recruiting trail as a peer recruiter. What elements of his personality do you think made him successful at that? And then maybe what that sort of thing, how could it help him as a player and being coachable?
This will be a short answer. I hate this answer, but you come on. He's a real guy. And we all know what that is. You've been around those in your life. Like, tell me about that guy. That's a real dude right there. He's a great human. He's a great person. He comes from a great family. He's cut from the right cloth, and all he cares about is being his best and his team being his best. So why wouldn't you want to be around that guy? On the field, it's going to be the same. We'll talk about him and his future and why did he have a great career, what happened, because he was a real guy. He studied the right way, he trained the right way, he lived the right way, he was around the right people, and those guys, they don't fail very often in life.
Take what he has in his toolbox, take what he's learned from last season, go back and study it, find a way we can make him better, and I think that's the biggest key right now, and that's what he's working on. You know what I mean? And just kind of revamp himself and continue to move forward.
That same question for Jack. It seems like he's kind of been moved around a little bit, trying to find the right way to utilize his talents.
Yeah,
and,
we're going to try to settle that down a little bit, get him in a position where he can go hone in his skills. And, you know what I mean? If that means Jack or playing regular defensive end, I think we've got to make that decision. We go for it. And I think we'll do a little bit at the spring, just try to get him a home and get him to go play. Yeah.
How do you evaluate what you saw from the interior line this year?
What's that?
Just your evaluation of the way the defensive tackles played this season.
I thought the inside guys played great. I really do. I thought they really played physical at the point of attack. They moved the line of scrimmage. They attacked. I thought there were factors in a lot of games the way they played inside. Ron, Ty, Talik, I mean, those guys inside I thought did a great job playing. And that was kind of started early on. You saw that those guys could make a difference. It makes it easier for guys on the edge. You got guys penetrating.
Was there more to Mike Hall's injury than maybe he let on, or that publicly you?
Yeah, he struggled. I mean, he struggled with it a little bit. You know, we try to bring him back, give him a chance to recover a little bit, but it's an ongoing thing when it happens, and hopefully we get him healthy now in the off season, so he'll play a full season.
With Ty Hamilton's development, do you see Mike Hall moving to 3 techs so that you can have?
We're not there yet. I mean, there's a possibility a lot of things can happen as we go forward. You know, you try to get the best fit for the best guys. You know, I thought Ty had a great year. He came in and really won the position. He really did, and he continued to play better down the stretch. So I think great things to him. I think Mike is a different dimension of what he can do. So we'll figure it out. But I think Mike's a starter somewhere, and we just got to find a place to get him on the field. I think he'll be fine. Yeah.
Sorry, would you like to see Jack just sort of settle into being a traditional hand on the ground defensive end like you recruited him to be?
Yeah, that's long term. You know, I can say that right now. Yeah, that's what I like to see happen. I think we have to work to the progress of that. You know, we've got to find out who's going to be on Jackson. And the Leo guy, who's that's going to be and what's the best fit. But I think that as we move that direction, you know, I think there's some things we've got to take a hard look at where we want him to play.
How about Caden Curry? Does he factor into that?
He does. I mean, Caden will go into the off season in the number 2 in the depth chart defensive end. I don't want to move him. I want him to learn how to play that position and play it well. And so I think he's got a good chance to really make a factor for us as he's settled in going into the second year.
Larry, what do you see of Hero Kinu's role possibly being? I know he's got a long way to go, still a young guy, but what do you see his role being?
He's made a lot of progress. I will say that from the day one to where he is right now, it's night and day. He came in about 330. He's about 305 right now. His body fat has really decreased. His condition's gotten better. He's absolutely gotten stronger. Right now, he could be a 3 technique or a nose guard for it. He's a real powerful young guy on the inside. And I just can't wait to see what happens now for the first time. It's full spring, 15 days going to work, get him ready to go play. But I'm excited about it, to be honest with you.
And a couple other young guys at DN, Kenyatta Jackson and Amari Abor. Same question. What do they have to do to see the field? What do you see their role being?
Well, they flashed in the whole season. I really like KJ. KJ's done a great job for it. Has some really good pass rush ability. Amari's really strong, real physical guy. He's up to 265, coming in at 240. Real strong now, physical guy. And I think spring football is what it's all about. You get the chance to see those guys play a lot of football in the spring because that's what it's all about. And I think coming out of spring, then I'll be able to answer that question for you. But I think I'm excited to see what happens with the young guys.
Does the Jack need to come from the defensive end group?
Excuse me?
Does the Jack or the Leo need to come from the defensive end
Not necessarily. It can come from the linebacker position. That's what I'm saying. Hard to say exactly what is going to happen right now because we haven't sit down and say, here's what we're going to do. But it doesn't have to be from the defensive end position. It could come from the linebacker position.
And one guy that maybe I don't know how much you work with him yet, your initial impressions with James Laurinaitis?
I know James from playing on the other side, coaching against him. I think he's for 2 days here. I mean, he's a Buckeye. He's going to bring great value to what we do in our linebacker room. But I mean, to our whole entire defense. He's a guy who played in the defense, understand what it means to be a silver bullet. So we've got a great history right beside us now. I can talk about that. I think that's really cool. And I'm looking forward to work with him.
Did you have that much at Penn State?
I think I played against him
In terms of coaching, like did any of your past players come back?
The only guy I had was Elijah Robinson, the guy that came back. He was my GA, who's now the D-line coach at Texas A&M. He's been the only guy close that I have who's came back.
When you've seen Hartline, certainly that consistency has been his thing. Have you seen signs of that consistency coming?
No doubt, he has to, right? This is going into the third season, and we think our third-year player should be ready to go. I mean, he has everything he needs to have. He's got great talent, great quick, great power. Now he's got to give him the best shape he can possibly be in. He's got to be able to play 40, 50 plays in. And I think that's what's coming right now. He's working at it. I give him credit to him. He's working to be a really elite player, and that's what you want to see. He's got the fire in him.
And just in a general sense, I mean, you lost some key players, obviously, but you got a lot coming back. How do you feel about the defensive line?
I feel good about it. I mean, it's early on. Like you like to get to a spring football. I know what we have in numbers. I know what we have on the field, guys that play, guys that have been in games, so I'm excited about that. Now they got those roles changed. Now those guys are going from 25 plays to 40, 50 plays, and that's a different mindset you got to have. So I'm looking forward to see what happens in spring football.
There's always expecting things out this last several years about your future, year to year.
I was saying this to myself. I wanted to coach Nick Saban and get all these questions about when he's going to retire. I bet does he get all those questions? Because every year is the same question, right? And every year I'm still here, so that should answer all of your questions. So you never have to ask me that.
He yells at the media, and you're nice to us.
What's that?
He yells at the media, and you're nice to us.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you. Until you see an empty chair here, then you know I'm going. But come on, I'm still standing here. I'm still here. So let's write. Coach Johnson's still here. And that's the story. I just promise you, when I do, I'm going to hurry up a huge press conference, right? And you're going to be the first guy going to tell.
You won't have it. You can slip away.
Slip away in the dark, right? No. But here, I'm glad I'm here. I mean, I'm the purpose though. I'm here, and it's all the same reason.
We asked a lot of the young guys at Peach Bowl Media Day, why did they pick Ohio State? All of them, the guys like Kenyatta Jackson, Mari Abor, Hero Canoe, all the guys we're talking about said Larry Johnson was the first thing out of their mouth. I mean, when you hear that, I know it doesn't surprise you. When you hear that, how does that make you feel?
It's good. That tells us a relationship. There's still a relationship business. It really is. And we're getting away from it a little bit, but it's a relationship and development. Those are the two keys, really the keys to get guys here. And I don't think that's going to change. I mean, certainly for me, but I think that's important.
Kind of building off that, like the relationship thing, the way you recruit, you typically build strong relationships, whether the kid comes here or not. But when you do get to the finish line, and there isn't that payoff, given all the changes that are going on in college football right now, does it sting a little bit more, or does it make you feel like sometimes you need to maybe change your approach and how you go about things at all?
I think college football has changed the period, right? The NIL deal is real. That is real as it can be, and it's not going away, right? And so I still think it's about relationship and development, those two pieces. If a kid doesn't want that, then you're probably not recruiting the right kid, right? Even though having a 5-star, 6-star, it doesn't really matter. Is that you want the right kid to be in the program, and that's what we're looking for. It's the right fit, and that's still important to today's, to find the right fit. And sometimes that may not be the fit because he's looking for something different. But you want to get developed. You want to build a relationship with the family that you know that you're going to take care of your son. You know what I mean? You might want to look at Ohio State because that's what it's all about.
I know you're big on depth and being able to rotate and keep guys fresh. But in the past, you've had guys who are talented enough that maybe they shouldn't come off the field, and they don't come off the field. When you are evaluating that type of stuff and trying to figure out how I'm going to rotate versus should that guy not come off the field, how do you go about that process?
To me, this question comes up all the time. It's about where we are in the game and how tired, how physical he is in the game. You can play a guy 90 play. I remember coming in the first time in 2014. Joey Bosa played 865 plays during the course of his freshman year. And for me, walking out, I said, that is ridiculous. That's a lot of plays for a guy. So how many of those 865 plays was he at maximum speed? You know what I mean? Because it's hard for anybody to do that, right? And so you want to make sure you have enough time that you allow your players to play at maximum speed at all times. If he's just on the field and he's tired, he's not going to be a factor. You're not going to rush. You're not going to get off the ball. And that's key in a critical situation. You say, well, just leave him on the field. He'll figure it out. Yeah. If he's tired, he won't figure it out. So it's still important. I think substitution has its moment. I think substitution have its place in college football. If you look across the country, we're not the only one that substitute guys. You know what I mean? We substitute guys because I want to play fresh. I try not to do it in tough situations, but I do trust my players. That's what you build in the room. You build a trust with your players that you trust them on the field. And I think that's what makes my room different because guys think there's accountability. Not just the guys who started, but the guy in the second group has to be pretty good too. That's why you want to football.
does that plan, can that change during the game?
No doubt.
If you're going with the idea that, okay, JT's going to play 30 snaps, JJB's going to play 25 snaps. Can that change as the game?
I don't go in a game and say he's going to play 25 or 30 snaps. I don't do that. There's a rotation of stuff that I have that everybody wants, but I'm not going to give it to you. But I do have a plan. I know how many plays I kick and play at maximum speed. Why? Because I watch him practice every day. I watch it get into 7-play drive. I know when he's ready to go, another 14-play drive. You guys don't see that. I see that in practice. So when you say, why are you substitute? Because I know there's a limit when that body's going to shut down. And I don't want to make sure he's on the field because he's hurt, he's tired, that injury comes. Because that's my fault. That's the worst thing that could happen. That I'll leave a guy on the field too long, and like if something happens, I won't sleep very well at night.
I know you're speaking about JT when I first got over here. Can you speak more about him? Like, what does he need to do? We saw flashes of last year. To be, I know they're different players, but to be like a Chase Young, the impact he had as a junior, Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa, what does JT need to do to get to that level?
I think this is the jump. You know what I mean? This is really the jump. Going to that third year, that's what you're looking for. And it is really about consistent, trusting your technique, trusting your toolbox, and he can play at a high level. You were seeing him do that. So it's not trying to get him to play at a high level. It's being consistent at that high level. I think that's the key going into the fall, going into the winter. And I think that's what he's concentrating on. He wants to be in the best shape he can possibly be in. I hear him talk about it all the time. And his body cut his butt fat down, gets slimmer, but still maintain 207 pounds per run. And I think he's got a good mindset going into the third year. He knows that the noise is out there, but it starts with him, not the noise. So I think that's what he's focused on.
And he seems like a natural leader. I know you said, as a young guy, it was tough to really be vocal, but he had that speech that he talked about, that a lot of people talked about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now I imagine he's going to emerge as even more of a leader. Speak about that a little bit, if you will.
I think he's got great leadership skills. When he speaks, kids listen. For a freshman to stand in front of the whole entire team and give a message, I thought was pretty special. He asked Coach Day, he said, "Can I say something?" That's uncommon for a freshman to ask to speak to a veteran players. But he's got a lot of respect for the team. He really does. And I think when you have that, you have a chance to emerge as a leader. And I think he's got great leadership skills. He's got great people skills. I think that's important too.
Larry, forgive me if you've addressed this, but you've recruited longer than anybody here. If a kid said NIL's my number one thing, do you stay away from him, regardless of talent? Does he fit in your room?
Yeah, I think we don't talk NIL much, and I don't talk money when I go in and talk to players. I'm not allowed to do that. I think Columbus is a big city, right? So there's a lot of things that can happen in Columbus, and we try to share that with them, right? But since I said this early on, you want a guy that wants to be developed, wants to really have a relationship. And my story is that whatever you take now, if you have a chance to be a top player in the top fifth pick in the draft, are you willing to give that up for this one-time thing that you might get here, right? Or you can be a $90 million draft pick if you get developed. And so to me, that's still the part of it. And some kids, they don't want to hear it, and some kids do. And like I said earlier, those are the guys that we're attracted to at Ohio State University.
Do you factor in family situation in that? I mean, a lot of it could be greed. Some of it's just, I want to take care of.
I think you almost have to. And it is what it is. NIL is what it is, and it impacts everybody, not just the players. And like you said, it's impact families, whole 9 yards. And so I think it's a whole picture. If a kid says, I'm going to so-and-so school because my dad, my mom, what are you going to say? You know what I mean? You just got to respect that and move on.
Are you amazed what this has become? In a way, it's always been there. It's just been under the table.
Yeah, this is real, and it's going to be here for a while, right? And I think that, again, maybe change recruiting a little bit, but I think we have a place for the kids. We have an attraction here at Ohio State University. That you can come here, get a great education, get developed, and if your goal is to play on Sunday afternoon, we got great coaches here. You have a chance to do that. So I think the message is still the same.
Does it make it, I don't know if easier is the right word, if you lose a kid to another place because of NIL, is it like it's not as crushing? Does that make sense? Because or is
it's the energy you put into it until you get to that moment, right? Okay. It's almost like so you want to have it on the table first, like, okay, where you're at, you know what I mean? Yeah. Then we can start the whole process. But it doesn't happen that way, right? Because they're doing the same thing, looking around. But no, it's tough, but you got to do it. You have to go through it.
Spring, I think just in general, though, I mean, in spring, the more opportunities we get the chance to play it as real as possible for myself and young quarterbacks and everybody else. I think that it serves everybody well.
How comfortable would you feel to go and call a game right now?
Pretty comfortable, just because with the surrounding party I have. I mean, I think that Coach Dave has always done it at an elite level. We've always produced from a production standpoint, offensively at an elite level. But the support staff I have around me really empowers me. So my confidence comes from having them, and so I'd be very confident.
Brian mentioned he challenged you a lot last year, especially when coordinated with picking up blocking schemes and all of that. How much did your year as passing coordinator help prepare you think for the year?
Yeah, I think it's all critical. I don't think, it's not just carrying a title, I don't believe. I think it's probably more than that. But as you continue to build in any profession, more responsibilities and how you handle those responsibilities and how those fingers reach outside of the responsibilities you're technically supposed to have, really just show probably your growth potential. So it's not just me, it's anybody. And I like to think I did a good job with that. But again, still a reset. Here's where I'm at now. Now where can I grow from here? And how can I help this team accomplish the goals we want to accomplish?
Have you been secretly sitting around keeping little schemes you're coming up with, et cetera? I mean, for that day when you become a coordinator, or you understand what I'm saying?
We have plenty of plays. Yeah. And we have plenty of minds.
That's what I was going to
we don't, it's not like there's in my opinion, a secret sauce out there.
Yeah.
So I would say no.
Yeah, so define what an offensive coordinator is from your vantage point, from your perspective. Is it collating everybody's ideas and putting them together? Is it coming up with something novel? I mean, how would you explain it? Right?
It's definitely multifaceted. In a coach in general, I think you wear a lot of hats. You don't just, I think sometimes coaching receivers, I'm blessed with a great room, but I used to say coaching is like the last thing I do, so, but I would say being an offensive coordinator is, putting your fingerprint on things that you find more important than others. I mean, at the end of the day, you have an allocation of time, how you allocate that time. You have a list of plays and schemes, and what you find, an A play versus a B play and a C play, that becomes probably more your identity. That's probably your responsibility. I mean, I think that being able to enhance the people around you. My job as a receiver coach is to get the best out of the receivers. My job as offensive coordinator is to maximize each, guy in that room, each coach in that room, to what they're capable of. So that doesn't change, I think, in the grand scheme, but maybe the dynamics within the groups maybe are a little different.
But then helping to identify a starting quarterback. You guys have got a competition. You don't have a returning starter at quarterback and stuff. How much have you weighed that throughout your career about what makes this guy different from that guy? Why do I go with this guy?
I mean, I constantly assess players myself. I mean, I assess my 5-year-old son. I mean, I can't watch him play sports because I'm assessing him. So that's just what we do all the time. And I think, the biggest thing to remind yourself sometimes is new year, new identity. Some players are carryover, but there's new players. And every year you have a new identity. These players look for a new opportunity to reestablish themselves or to establish themselves. And giving them that opportunity, I think, is critical. I think sometimes the byproduct of past years gets stuck in your mind as a coach, which, in the matter as a player, like, okay, hold on now. Like, this is my next year, new opportunity. Maybe some older guys are gone. My voice can be louder. So you got to make sure as a coach you provide that platform to where those players can enhance themselves as well.
But how important is it to identify when you have a brand new starting quarterback situation, to identify who that guy is sooner rather than later, or do you want to let it mature?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a rush. I think that I'll lean heavily on Coach Day with how that all goes down. And people have an opinion and have a voice, but that quarterback room is pretty well established over the last 4, 5, 6 years, and the standard in which they operate. And Coach Day obviously is the reason for that, and Coach Dennis. So those guys will do a great job, do what they do, and I'm sure I'll just be a part of the conversation.
Are you noticing the dust start to settle with NIL? When you're out on the road, are you getting more comfortable with it? Is it still the Wild West?
Yeah, you're definitely getting more comfortable with it. I think that the dust still has not settled. I think the only way it settles is with time, and I think guys seeing the reality of what's happening and not happening, what's real and not real. That won't show until down the road, and so, but it's definitely more comfortable. know it's here to stay, so it's not as new. But definitely interesting dynamic.
Are you guys happy with where you are in terms of whether it's how it's coming in, and you always win a lot more? I get that.
Yeah, I mean that's the fine balance, right? You always want to have more, and that's just the reality of it. I mean, if you ask NFL teams if they wish the salary cap was higher, they would say yeah, they wish it was higher. So, I would say that I'm really happy with where we're at. I think that I'm proud of the way we've gone about it. I'm sure Coach Day can hit on it more. I don't want to speak out of context there, but we definitely want to be sustainable. We definitely want to be very thoughtful and thorough, and really do right by the young men. And I think that we're doing that at a pretty good clip.
You hear all these stories. Have you been surprised by how much a kid wants to talk about it, or what's expected? Did you see it? Maybe it is. Maybe the percentage of how high that is in the recruiting conversation isn't what we're hearing.
Well, I think it's a part of a variable. Like the variable, like anything, can change. So where those people, where the young athletes place that variable in the importance of their recruitment is on them. And we know it's important. We don't believe it's the most important. So all that has to match up, and I think that's really important. I think that's part of maybe the emphasis in the athlete's mind or family's mind and all that, and it all plays a part, right? At the end of the day, there's a bunch of variables on the table. You're trying to assess the variables and determine that young man's odds of success based on the variables. That's the combine, that's recruiting, that's all that. So now it's another variable. How you handle that variable and how you place it is up to assessment.
So at that program, if you've got a super talented guy, but his number one thing is NIL, stay away.
So I would say this. I would say that it's probably per position per coach. I would say as a receiver coach, probably not a guy that would fit in our room. So, however each coach handles it and how Coach Day wants to handle it, that's fine. But I'm okay with saying that's probably not the right fit for us.
Brian, you're moving up to offensive coordinator is not just promotion for you; it's also part of Ryan's concept of kind of restructuring things. Did you see here these last couple of years how much was kind of on his plate and how that would wear on him a little bit?
Yes, that's probably natural. I think the longer you're in it, the more that college football morphs. I mean, let's take a snap back to what college football was in 2015, and then where it is in 2020, 2023. I mean, it's vastly different. And I think that as he continues to be in the head coaching role, and there's more put on your plate, and there's more people, and there's more hands on you, and it just grows, right? And I think Ohio State demands that, obviously, at the highest level. So, I think that he feels that more than I would ever, and he's just trying to do right by what he thinks would be best to help maximize the team. And he spoke about it a little bit, but this day is coming.
Ryan, you talked in the past about maybe you didn't take the most linear route to get to here, but when you were in college, when you were in the NFL, were you paying attention to offensive coordinators in such a way that maybe I'm going to do that someday, trying to glean things from?
Nope.
Ryan said that you would be more involved now in recruiting the whole offense.
Yep.
Is that something you're excited about? Is that something it's a challenge because you are a receiver and receiver brains?
Yep. Or? No, I think it's exciting. I like being able to reach out to those guys. I think that I lean heavily on the guys. It helps steer me. I want to make sure. Again, I think my job as a coordinator is to help facilitate the position coaches to go after the guys they want, not to go get the guys, but to help facilitate. And just like Coach Day helps facilitate with the receivers, but it's still my responsibility. That's how I feel. So I lean heavily on the position coaches to help guide me on where they want it and where they want me and where they don't. I mean, that's really important. But the opportunity to meet more young men and make an imprint on them and hopefully get them here, and that can build. I mean, the biggest part I've told you, Berm, before is through recruiting. I feel like the relationship part can be built, because if there's no relationship, there's no coaching. You can only coach a guy as hard as the relationship allows. And I like to try to not hedge my bets, but speed that process up through recruiting. So when they get here, they already know hard calls, like it's for a reason, and not being like, oh, hey, I'm Coach Hart, nice to meet you, and it takes 6 months to build that relationship. It's really hard to coach in that first 6 months then, versus when they step on campus. So, just like the receivers, I would feel the same way about the other positions.
To that vein, like in this cycle that's coming, your focus will be different than it's ever been before. Is it more important for you in 24, in 25 to get those relationships like right now, where you don't have a lot of the other stuff around the game in summer? And
I don't think so. And I don't mean to be dismissive, but I feel like there's plenty of time in the day to get it done. I just got to be more, make sure I stay organized and I don't waste time. But there's plenty of time to get it done.
If you're going to experiment with new play calls in the spring, is it advantageous to do so when you're also identifying a new quarterback as opposed to a guy who's been in the system for 2 years and this is the offense he's ran? Is there any?
I don't feel any type of way towards that. I don't think. These guys have been in the offense. They know the offense. They're going to continue to build trust, and I'm not worried about them side. It's just making sure they feel how I operate.
Brian, does it help you make that transition to coordinator when you know you have 3 returning starters at receiver?
I think having the building full of players that we have, regardless of returning starter or not, provides a great opportunity for anybody to call plays at Ohio State. So, for me, regardless of returning or not, excited for it.
So you've accumulated a lot of talent in that receiver room. Kind of what's maybe your message to those guys who aren't the returning starters on how they can earn playing time this year?
I think right now in the off-season program, the biggest thing is, and I'll just share it with you, is that I said right now you should be trying to impress your peers. Impress your peers. Your peers know. Players know. By trying to impress your peers, that means everything, right? Being on time, if not early, how you work, how you communicate, if you're up front, you're not in front, all those things matter. And I think by doing that, you'll probably in turn impress Coach Mick, because Coach Mick knows what it looks like. He runs the program. He's really the facilitator of all culture at Ohio State. And if you can impress him, you're on the right track. I've never seen a guy impress Coach Mick and not be on the field. So do that, and then obviously the coaches. So if you keep your mindset on, again, impress your peers, because those peers are hard to impress, that'll byproduct to probably impress Coach Mick, and your coaches will be impressed. The rest of the care stuff. So that's the focus, I would say, through the off-season months.
I've seen you respond to a few people on social media about Jackson's within Jigba's draft projections. Just what's your message to NFL teams about why you should draft?
I don't have a message to NFL.
What are some of the most important things you think you've learned from Ryan about calling a game, offensive play calling, being around him for the last few years?
It's not going to be perfect. I think that relying on those around you for recommendations, implementing those recommendations, being okay to agree with some but not agree with some, that's okay. Again, I've been on the headset with him for 5-6 years, so there's been a lot to learn from. His calm, I think, has been really good. I think the conversations at halftime and how those go kind of resonate with me big time. So there's lots of things. To nail it down just to one, would be hard to do. But again, given that opportunity, he's still going to be on the headset with me. So it's not like I have to write him down and take it with me. He's going to be right there. So, like I said, given the opportunity, a lot of confidence because of the guys around me.
How much was Kevin a part of that? How, not weird or odd, but comfortable, uncomfortable, not having him?
I don't know. That's probably
security blanket, was he? Or
Kev was full of knowledge. He would communicate, keep Coach Day calm. I think he was a good sounding board. Again, it's not just me. It's the dynamics of all of us. Justin was used to Coach Wilson being there, and having Coach Bailey and having Tony, and so all of us played our own parts. So that dynamic will change, and like true pros, we'll handle that dynamic change.
You moved away farther from the league, playing in the league. I'm just curious if your tenor, if your tone, if your experience has changed, like talking to guys about the NFL compared to today.
It hasn't changed a whole lot. I think I don't rely on that. I think the guys kind of like hearing about it a little bit, but they're not learning from their peers. Now we're getting guys in the spot where just call Chris and Garrett. You don't need me. So call Terry McLaurin, call Paris Campbell. So that building of proof in the pudding, as you will, really provides them a great lifeline.
What brought you back to coaching? You did it a few years ago, convenience store drive.
It was just my brother was here, and I kind of got in the building, and then I happened to stay in the building. That's really what it was. There wasn't a plan to coach. It kind of happened. They didn't have much going on in the spring of 2017, and I was living in town, and then I just never left.
Do you still have that place?
We just sold them all, actually.
Did?
Like last year.
Did you all right?
Yeah.
Brian,
last question.
Coach Day. Coach Day was just talking about having guys who played here, guys who are familiar with this program on staff. Bring in a guy like James. I'm just curious from your perspective how being a guy who is so familiar with the program maybe is different in everything you do as an assistant coach at that program.
Well, I don't know. I think that'd be a good question for the players, because at the end of the day, those are the people we want to impact. I guess speaking from my perspective, it seems to be that, when I do talk or I do communicate about the university, it probably comes off a little different than just a guy that's been hired by somebody. And again, it's not a knock on Ohio State. It's just, you go across the country, and that happens everywhere. I mean, how many guys are former players coaching their position at their school? It's probably pretty few. So the conversation probably just sounds different, which resonates different with the person listening. We can definitely, reach back in and talk about past experiences and talk about what it means to us. And, I think there's times of the year where that hits. Maybe there's a different passion that comes out of it that the guys feel maybe. But again, it's hard for me to say versus a player answering that question.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
Like, how much of your philosophy, knowledge, anything else that goes into coaching?
I think it's, I wouldn't say it's been a recruiting tool. I mean, this has always been a scenario where if you show that you can play, you will. We've never. That was uncharted waters for me to have that many guys. I mean, injuries happen all across the board. To have that many in the time span that we did, that was uncharted waters for me personally. But I think every young guy, when they watch, they can say, well, I've got opportunities, and what you do with those opportunities is up to you.
Were there ever conversations with Dallin about maybe him leaving, or did you have to talk to him about staying in this program, given the fact that Mayan's coming back, Trey's coming back?
No, he's been good, and you hear all the stuff out there, in the social media world, and you hear a lot of stuff out there. Yeah. But at the core of it, I think we've got enough relationship with players that we can have an open conversation with them and the parents. Say, okay, here's where we're at. What are you thinking? So no, he's been fine.
You've got two there. Is Chip going to stay in your room?
He is.
Okay. You've got 5 guys and legitimate guys. Obviously, a good thing to have, but it can be good. How do you guys deal with it?
Well, again, I think it's open conversations with guys and finding scenarios and situations where guys can perform, where guys they kind of have their niche and things that they can do. Because at the end of the day, trying to put your best 11 players on the field, right? And so we've got to find ways to get guys on the field that can help us win games, and if that means that you have certain packages or different things that you can present and do for us, and then we'll use that accordingly. He's doing great. From all indicators for me, he's been doing great. So, yeah.
Ryan said he's not going to do the spring. Haven't yet. You expect him to be healthy?
Well, that's between him and the doctors. I mean, but he'll be back for the summer. He'll be ready. If he can't do stuff in the spring, if he cannot, then he'll definitely be ready by the summer.
I'm sorry for your asses. Is Chip staying with you guys?
He is, yes, sir. Yep. He's going to stick around with us, and that's good. It's a good plan.
How did those conversations go? I guess like mid-year last year when he did come over with you guys, and then all of a sudden he's going to be kind of the guy who carries the load for you.
Yeah, I mean, Chip is a consummate team guy, and he just wanted to play, and he felt like he could help us kind of in our situation that we were in, and kind of depleted of bodies, if you will. And he obviously had played the position at a high level, and so again, Chip was a constant player. He just wanted to play, and he said, if I can go over there and help the football team, then coach, I'm all in. And so and I've known Chip a long time in the recruiting process, goes way back, and it helped, and he helped us out when needed.
I know every year we ask you a version of how you're going to get all these guys touches. I'm going to try to ask
every year I tell you the same thing.
You do. I'm trying to approach it a different way. Just going through what you went through last year and having to be a little bit patchwork at times. Can you envision a scenario where you try to spread those touches out, not just to make guys happy, but to kind of get everybody to the finish line so that you're at full strength?
Yeah, I think they all would have played last year anyway. Right now, Chip probably wouldn't have had to come over. Right. Excuse me. Chip probably wouldn't have had to come over, mind you. But those guys would have all ended up playing anyway. Now, how many carries or things like that? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball there, but and like I say all the time, that'll be dictated how the season's going and health and kind of where we're at, things like that. But I'd envision now down, going into the season. Did you envision that he would have gotten as many carries? No, but then the carries he got, he performed and did a nice job for us. And so you just go to practice every day and you prepare him the best you can because you don't know what's coming. And I can appreciate you saying all the things that I went through. It's not I didn't go, our team went through that. Yeah. And I said this back during the bowl press conference. The whole deal for me was really, really trying to keep my players in that room, the emotions together. Because that's frustrating. It's not just frustrating for coaches, but it's frustrating for them. They're highly competitive guys, and for them not to be able to go out and perform the way they'd like to perform for whatever the reasons, that gets frustrating for them too. And so really it wasn't about me, it was about them and trying to keep their frustration levels in check, if you will.
For Dallin, how do you build off of what he was able to do as a freshman?
Well, I think hopefully it builds his confidence. He and I had a conversation just yesterday actually about just him building his confidence and in eliminating the noise around him. Because there's, you turn on social media. That's what Dallin's thinking this and Dallin's doing that. Well, Dallin, where are we at here, right? And so Dallin's going to be an excellent football player for us, and I think hopefully him having the year that he had, hopefully this will just for him to really gain some confidence as we move into the spring. He's never been through an off season. He's never been through a spring. So this is still all new uncharted waters for him as well. But he's walking around with a different demeanor than he did early in the season. Much more confident and secure with who he is, kind of in his own skin. And so it's been fun to watch his maturation. But that's kind of what you expect and hope for him. But then he comes from a home where Aaron and Jatoya are going to be very in tune to, okay, what are you thinking? What are you doing? How are you doing it? What's the next step? So he comes from a background like that as well.
Is Xavier going to be with you guys, do you think?
No, he's been back with you.
Ken, I know Ryan just said Evan's not going to be a participant in the spring, but sort of envisioning ahead for Evan, is he a guy who can do some of the stuff you did with X when he was like...
I would like to think so. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely would like to think so, but time will tell. He's a guy that we have always felt was going to have a integral part in our offense. And going into the season, we thought that, especially coming off the spring that he had a year ago. So hopefully he's going to be able to propel and move that forward and do the things that we fully anticipate he can do. But the direct answer, yeah.
When you have a player like you had in the Peach Bowl who says, hey, coach, I'm going to sit out for whatever reason, whether it be injury, whether it be draft.
Who said that? Who said in the Peach Bowl said he was going to sit out?
Travion sat out for his injury, recovering that. But when you have a player who will be unavailable, who has been such a big part of what you do, how does that change your preparation for that? How do you keep them included in this is what we're focusing as a running game, even knowing that they won't be able to directly institute that in the game?
Well,
does that make sense?
As far as the personnel-wise, all of our players are coached and taught our offense and to be able to perform the duties of our offense. It's not like, well, he can only do this and he can only do. We want to teach guys, and hopefully we want our players to be three down backs. They can play it in all given situations. Now, some may be better at more depth than someone else at maybe certain things, but they all can perform, right? And as far as keeping a guy engaged, I guess that's what you're asking. How do you keep a guy engaged?
Yeah, I just know there are some programs that say like, okay, you're injured, we're going to focus you more on, you go wherever you need to rehab it, you go to your athletic trainer, you spend time like that, not necessarily with the team as much as somebody who's actually playing in full go. How do you balance that in terms of, we need to make this adjustment, we're going to take this going forward? How do you make sure that they are a part of that and learn that skill?
Yeah, again, they still have to stay engaged in what we're doing. Yeah, they did. Trey spent a lot more time with the trainers than he generally would, but he's still in meetings and still engaged with what we were doing and still being an integral part. And so you have to help them, keep them engaged, that keep them involved in the meeting. Still ask them questions. Now, it might not be all the questions like it may have been if he was actually playing, but they're still engaged, and they're still a part of this team and a part of this family, a part of this unit. Because I think when they get disjointed and kind of off on their own, that's when you start to see problems, because they feel like, well, I'm not involved, I'm not a part of anything anymore. And so, you got to be creative in how you keep them involved in the way that I've done it, we have done it. Those kids still come to meetings, they still do everything that we do. And because he's still a part of it. And it's not like you're banished to Siberia and never coming back. So we still have to stay engaged, because when you do get back, we're not going to try to have to reteach it and the things that we're doing. So stay engaged. And for someone like Trey, who played a lot of ball, obviously he can be a great help for Dallin and guys like that.
In what ways did he do that, preparing for the people?
I mean, he was right there in the meetings and talking him through stuff at practice and talking him through things. So he was right there in his corner and helping him out.
And then when you get players like Chip Trainum, who comes over from the defensive side, and you get Xavier, who was moving in a little bit from wide receiver to running back. Of course, that was a need-based thing. You just said it wasn't going to be a permanent change. Do you view that as a fun little challenge to get them set up in a running back, or to teach them? Of course, they all have their own different running back experience going in, but do you view that as a challenge to kind of shape somebody into a running back who might not have been previously?
Well, I think it's just, again, I guess I don't look at it as a challenge. I look at it as a necessity, right? This is what we got to go do, and I think it speaks volumes about guys like Xavier and Chip, for that matter, that are team guys that want to help the team. And okay, well, it's my job if we're gonna put you back here, you got to be able to perform the duties at a high level. So whatever it takes, whatever time it takes to get you ramped up, then that's what we got to go do. And they got to grab and latch onto that as well. But yeah, it's what it is.
And then last thing from me, what does it say to you about a player who sees that need, who knows that need to step up and fill in that spot, and they say, I got it, I'm ready to learn whatever
that's
you
the
need?
type of people you want to be around, right? That are problem solvers. And guys that say, we have an issue, how can I, it's not moan and groan and bitch and moan about the problem, but how do we fix it? And they want to be a part of the solution. Guys that are consummate team players, that are very selfless, and I think we have a bunch of those in our locker room. I think our locker room is littered with those type of guys. Henceforth, we talk about that brotherhood, if you will, that you hear us throw around that term a lot. It's real, and it's guys like that show that they'll do whatever is necessary to help our football team win. You watch Xavier. Xavier's played offense. He's played defense. He's a stalwart on special teams. He's played numerous positions in the middle of games, middle of seasons. It doesn't matter. He's the guy that just keeps giving all he's got. As Chip does the same type of thing. So those are the type of young people you want to be around.
Thanks, Coach.
Why did Chip? Last question. Why did Chip ultimately decide to stay running back?
You'd have to ask him. I think he actually feels that that's probably his natural position, and that's always what he wanted to be, even when we recruited him out of high school before he went to Arizona State. But he'd have to tell you that. But I bet you that's what he would say to you. And I love having him in our room. He brings so much. He's a mature, again, team guy, very positive. A very positive leadership that he brings out. And so I love that about him. And he knows that, because I've told him as such. And to continue to do that and provide that for our football team.
Do you worry at all about confidence with Trey? To coach with the offensive line this past year, I spent with Coach Frye and Mike Solani and learned a whole lot about the run game and those kind of fundamentals. I felt I was prepared if there was an opportunity. And I'm just super appreciative of Coach Day trusting me. I can't wait to get going.
Yeah, and get into working your way up. I mean, you've been here, I think this is your 8th year, I think, coming up. I mean, just get into working your way up.
Yeah, I mean, rapid fire came in with Coach Alford, worked with the running backs, and moved over, linked up with Hartline and the receivers, worked with quarterbacks, and then most frequently with the offensive line with Coach Frye and Coach Solani. And that was the best year, by the way. Make sure they know that.
And then the tight end room this year, getting Cade back, I know was huge for you guys coming off that big year. And then you got Jelani Thurman coming in and a bunch of guys in between there as well. Just talk about your room and how do you see it shaking out behind Cade?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a deep room full of versatile guys, starting with Cade, right? I don't think I could have hand-selected a better, leader for my first year of being a unit leader to kind of have as my foundation. And to have a guy like Cade who does things right on and off the field is going to make my job a whole lot easier. And then they all just follow in line. I mean, we've got a deep room of the G's and Joe's and Bennett's and Sam's and Pat Gerds, and you mentioned Jelani, a whole lot of guys. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but a whole lot of guys that are hungry, excited to get to work.
What was so fun about the offensive line stuff last year? You said that was the best.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was something I didn't know, right? And you can't grow unless you're uncomfortable. So going from being a route running guy with, Coach Hart to, a quarterback guy with Coach Dennis and Coach Day, Coach Fish, and now all of a sudden I'm in this world of offensive line. I don't know, a base block versus a cutoff. And those two guys, Coach Frye, Coach Solani, are the best, offensive line coaches in the country. So just being uncomfortable was awesome.
I know Kevin Wilson always used to say you're coaching tight ends, you're teaching guys how to play left tackle and receiver at the same time. You obviously have the skill position background. How beneficial is it to now have the O-line background as well when you're trying to teach these guys how to block?
Sure, and that's exactly right. I think, I was talking to some, prospective student athletes, and I was just saying how at Ohio State especially, one play you got to block Chase Young, Zach Harrison, Jack Sawyer, JT, and then the next rep I'm asking you to get open against Rocket and Lathan and, first-round DBs. It's like, no offense to the left tackle we had last year, but I'm not asking Paris to do what Marvin does. I'm not asking Marvin to go block JT. So imagine asking you to do both in consecutive plays. But yeah, definitely. I mean, this time spent with the offensive line is going to help, fuel. And I mean, Coach Wilson was a huge mentor, huge help to me learning that aspect of it. I think I could fall back on my route running days with Coach Hart pretty well.
A lot of the guys spoke very highly of you. What was some of the things that they said to you when they heard this promotion?
Everyone was asking me, my favorite part about getting this promotion and getting hired, and it was hearing those former players. I mean, just I couldn't list all of them, but hearing some of those guys, those Terry McLaurins and Paris Campbells, and even those defensive guys. I got Jordan Fuller calling me, and hearing from those guys meant way more, no offense, than media and tweets. I love you guys, but, hearing those guys, see, hey, Key, I remember when you were running scout team, and now all of a sudden you guys are a unit. That was probably the highlight of it all for my wife and I.
What does it mean to you you sort of bet on yourself in the last 5 years here. You've had opportunities to go elsewhere, and a lot of people talk positive about you, as you said, but for young coaches going through what you went through the last 7 years, has it struck you yet how, kind of amazing this season?
I don't know if there's going to be an aha moment. Maybe it might be the first time in the shoe. Maybe it might be the first time getting my tail ripped by my boss or something. But no, I think it is pretty cool that at each step of the way I set people over places, and I just so happened to get linked up with Ryan Hartline and Ryan Day and Mick Marotti and Urban Meyer, and I went all in on people and relationships and not ping-ponging around. I know that works out for a lot of people, and maybe it would have worked out for me, who knows, but I bet on those people and it paid off, and I'm just so appreciative of them.
Keenan, towards the end of the year, we started seeing Joe working his way back in there. I don't know if you probably already asked this, but what's the ceiling for him now that he might get a more normal year?
Yeah, no, I mean, Joe, G, all those guys, the ceiling is whatever. I mean, they're the most gifted athletes in the country. We're Ohio State, so the sky's the limit for all those guys, Joe included. I can't wait to see just how they work from a day-to-day standpoint with me working for them. But no, the sky's the limit for those guys.
Was Cade a big recruiting win for you, or you just let him handle that on his own?
Cade had an opportunity to do something great. I think, that he's got some things to work on. He'd be the first one to tell you. And he could go down, I think, as one of the better tight ends to come through this place, which is certainly something to be said about that. We talk a lot about legacy. And from the day you're recruited and you come in here, we have goals. and we did not hit those goals last year. And for a guy from Ohio to not hit those goals as the starter is huge. I think we all know what those goals are. I don't need to get into that, but I think that helped Cade coming back.
He seemed to take that really personally, and I think it makes sense why he's the captain. Just a month into it now with workouts, and how are you noticing a difference in his mentality from years past, which was already pretty good? I'm not saying it wasn't, but he's a captain, didn't win those games. What's he like around the building right now?
Yeah, and it's not just Cade, but I think, every coach from Pee Wee level to NFL says every rep matters, and it's like a cliche, and every play matters. We were one play away from a national championship opportunity, a couple plays away from every goal we wanted. So now, everyone knows the urgency. To your point, yes, Cade's kind of setting it. He's a serious guy. He's a captain. He's an urgent guy, but the urgency's ramped up for sure just because of the season we just had.
How important is this position group going to be, especially given new tackles on both sides and the blocking that you're going to have to do and help them along to form that chemistry that you're
Yeah, no, it'll be critical. And again, I think that's got to be the identity of our room. There's no better time to be a tight end than at Ohio State right now. Because at one play, and if you watch how football's going, right, tight ends can be a mismatch nightmare. You just hinted at being a left tackle. How about the next play, we're an X receiver? So having that versatility is really to keep defenders and defensive coordinators on their heels, I think. So yeah, it's going to be huge in the pass game, it's going to be huge in the run game, huge in the protection game, losing a couple tackles, all across the board.
Keenan, what's been the biggest difference since the promotion? Has there been a difference?
Yeah, there's a closet over there that I used to work out of, and it's vacant now. That's the only difference. I got a new title, but my job's the same. I always said, you got to make the Buckeyes better. You got to grow closer to the locker room. You got to outwork that team up north. The job's the same. The title's different, but I got a new office. That's the biggest difference.
When you have different position groups you've worked with, how much commonality is there in the coaching that goes into that, and how much is it different? Obviously there's different technique in that.
Yeah.
How much is coaching, and how much does it depend on different positions? How much does that change?
Sure. I think the foundation's all the same, right? It's getting student athletes, young people, to see things they can't see on their own, to do things they can't do on their own, to hear things they don't want to hear at times. So I think that's coaching. Now the technique, like you said, I didn't know anything about offensive line or run blocking until I spent a year with Coach Frye and Coach Delaney. But so techniques change, but I think coaching's coaching. I think, you take a great coach, whoever the best, you take Ryan Day, you take Urban Meyer, Mick Marotti, have them coach JV girls basketball. They're going to be a heck of a squad. So I think coaching's coaching.
How much did you work with Coach Wilson over, I don't know exactly how long it was from when you were officially named coach to, when he actually left?
Yeah, there was a transition time, which I thought was great towards the bull prep, that I sat in his meetings and heard how he coached it, because it's not broke. So it's not like it's, they say if it's not broke, don't fix it. This is certainly not a broke room. This is one of the best tight end rooms in the country. So I want to take as much as what Coach Wilson did. I want to learn from him. I asked him questions. I still text him, asking him questions, and I just want to kind of build on that. So, yeah.
What do you feel like are the most important, lessons or things you learned, maybe big picture things about, being a position coach or things like that from him?
From Coach Wilson?
Yeah.
Well, I think as far as the tight end room, again, just have versatility. You're playing left tackle and X receiver. And I know I've already said it, but at Ohio State, one play you got to block the best pass rusher on their defense. And then the next play, depending on coverage, I got to get open against their best coverage guy.
You mentioned the amount of veterans you have, Cade, Joe, all those guys.
Yeah.
How much of an effect does that have on a guy like Jelani, who's coming kind of wide-eyed, who has big expectations for coming into this program? How have you seen that affect him in his first days here?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's great. The example, I don't need to go create one and pull up clips of here's how, Hireman and Vinette did it, here's how it should be done. No, just watch Stover. If he's in here getting extra work wiring, you kind of think, you know what I mean? And Jelani's done a great job so far attaching himself to those old guys, taking coaching. He's done a great job since he's been here. But I don't need to go creating examples, showing them NFL clips. Just look around you.
And he's a guy that has high expectations or wants to make an impact quickly here.
Yeah.
And have you seen that in his drive in terms of these winter practices, and has that been an easy transition?
No, yeah, he's been eager, but since day one, he'd be in my office with a notepad, and we're getting to work. So I'm going to let his actions speak. But no, he's definitely eager. I can't wait to get on the field working with him.
It seemed like things moved pretty quickly once Kevin got the job.
Yeah.
What was that process like for you?
There was, conversations daily. In my role last year, that was that was kind of, my job was to work alongside Coach Day. So there was always ongoing conversations, and then when we figured out there would be an opening, he came to me and we just got to work. It was much going from there.
I mean, it seemed like Ryan has talked about you a lot in the past and the things that you've done together. How did you go about in your roles trying to add value to this organization? Right? Like, what was your approach in the roles you were in previously here to say, what can I do? Because I don't know, it seemed like at times it'd be like, all right, well, you're doing this, but also Keenan did this project.
And I think that goes back to just being a graduate assistant. Your job is to take things off the plate of the assistant coach, right? You're the assistant coach. So I know movies portrayed as a guy running to get coffee, but it's everything. It's Doug, I know you got to speak at a high school next week. Hey, here's who's coaching at the high school. Here's who you should say hi to. Here's what you should hit on. Hey, remember that player played back here in the 80s, just to make you better at your job. So I kind of just kept that mindset. I don't care what my title was each of the last 6 years. How can I have Brian Hartline, most prepared, Ryan Day most prepared? We talk about, anticipating and looking around corners for the head coach. And if I would always try to be one step ahead of Coach Day and give him options, or I'm not advising him. I don't have the answers, but as much preparedness as I could assist. It's kind of my job.
What was the point in your life where you figured out, hey, I might want to be a college football coach? And how did you come to that realization?
Playing the NCAA video game instead of doing the Road to Glory where you're the athlete. I was the coach, and I thought it was sweet. I'm starting at FAU and going to end up at Notre Dame or Ohio State, wherever I'm going to end up. And, I wasn't a great football player in high school. I'm a far better coach, but I went to Mizzou out of high school, and that first season there were such good coaches with Coach Pinkel and that staff. I said, I don't ever want to do anything else. I went to college to be a journalist. No offense to that industry. I was like, we won the SEC East. And
kind of managed it, and we've seen how to do it. And it'll be for sure thought out and categorized, and we'll know who gets what play and when they get it and who they get it with.
When you go through the highest profile one that we all know, when Dwayne and Joe are going at it, how much do you learn from doing it multiple times?
Cardell and JT was a pretty big one too.
Well, I wasn't sure how actively involved you were with
no,
that.
but I mean I was there every day. I remember seeing it.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
When you said you've been through it. It's not the first time that you guys have had to do this. What do you learn from managing them? I don't know if we did this perfectly. Let's change that for the future. How much of that goes on?
I think the one thing that's important, right, is the outside world paints this crazy, fierce quarterback battle. Now it is. It's uber competitive. Guys are always trying to maximize, and guys are always trying to capitalize. But that room knows that they need each other, right? So those guys lean on each other in between plays, or how they talk about things, or hey, what did you see? This is what I saw. They watch film together every day. So I think that's one piece that you've realized that you have to bring them together, and everybody's different, right? And so what one guy might need to work on, the other guy might not need to work on. And so how can you still, you obviously have to find your quarterback, but you're still trying to grow the room and elevate the room every day.
There's a perception that Kyle and Devin are pretty different athletically. How much of that is fair? I think Devin's got a good arm too, and Kyle can move a little bit. How much do you see them as really being very different athletic quarterbacks, if you do?
I wouldn't say that they're night and day different, but they are different. But that's kind of what it is, with all quarterbacks. They all have different traits that one guy leans on, one guy may not lean on, one guy has a strength, and at the end of the day, it's you try to maximize all your weaknesses to get them to become strengths.
Coach Day said that he hopes that one guy can really step into that starting role coming out of the spring. Obviously, the last time when CJ was emerging as a starter, it wasn't called until the preseason. What are your hopes and expectations for that, and why is this year maybe different in that regard than before, if it is?
I don't think that it might not be different, right? Like during the competition in the past, or you always want somebody to project and go and do it. So, but I'm on the same page as Coach Day. You hope someone jumps out and takes the reins, and they're the guy at the end of the spring for sure.
What were some of the biggest takeaways you had just coaching CJ Stroud? He is going to the NFL. Just what was he like coaching him, and talking about his instances?
Yeah. there's been a lot of great quarterbacks come through Ohio State, starting with JT and Cardell and Joe, Dwayne, Justin, CJ, and they're all unique in so many different ways. I think one thing that separates CJ just even from everybody is just one was his vision of the field was unbelievable, and the work ethic that he put in the film room. And I think that what he's done in the film room the past couple of years has really set a foundation for the young guys. It's set a foundation for Kyle McCord. It's set a foundation for Devin. And they know what it takes, and they know the work that you have to put in to compete at a high level at a place like Ohio State.
How much does having self-confidence play a role, especially with new tackles, new players around you, guys that are just trying to prove themselves as well?
Yeah, self-confidence is huge. Like, you see it all over the field. Why does a guy take a next step from high school to college to the pro? His talent didn't change. I mean, they've maybe been around different pieces, but yeah, you have to have self-confidence, and you have to believe in yourself, especially at the quarterback position, because when you take the field and you look at a huddle, you want all those guys to sit there and look and believe in you. And so if they have confidence in you, then that kind of gives them the confidence in themselves.
How do they get that without the game experience?
I mean, our practices are pretty competitive, right? I mean, we get after it every day, and getting reps in the spring, I mean, that's going to be critical. And that is a huge vital piece in developing a quarterback, and especially a young kid, is just getting those reps, and whatever level it is, whether it's level at the high school, getting those reps, or you see the rookie NFL guys, that crazy transition from year 1 to 2 because they've gotten those reps as well.
Corey, what kind of sold you guys on Lincoln?
I'm sorry?
What sold you guys on Lincoln, and what kind of he brings to the table, and kind of at what point were you like, yeah, this is a guy we wanted?
So Lincoln, just where he is recruiting, like South Dakota and all these kind of things, but then you look, and he's an extremely productive guy. And then I was able to go watch a game, watch him play, and it was like 1 versus 2, another highly ranked team in the state, and the guy's a competitor, and he does everything, and he's extremely athletic. He competes. I mean, there was a 2-minute drive that he doesn't play defense, but they're like, hey, we know that they're going to throw it right here, and they put him back at safety, and I think he had an interception at state championship game. But I just think his competitiveness, and then his production on the field, and then also him being an athlete and what he can do.
And with a guy like that, I mean, obviously it was kind of late in the process, so it wasn't really one that you could turn around, and so he can be enrolled in the spring and things like that. But when you have a guy who's still in South Dakota, still going through high school, how do you encourage him? How do you can kind of keep tabs on his development as he kind of prepares for that summer transition to your program? Yeah,
that's a great question. One is he'll come visit a bunch. He'll be up here for spring. He'll come see the things, and there's certain rules that you can do certain things with the guys, and so I mean we're constantly going. We're moving forward as if he is a quarterback at Ohio State right now.
Ryan was talking about Tristan and the job you did in identifying him and kind of the unique situation where he wants to be a coach and that sort of thing. How did you find him in the portal? How did you get in contact? What stood out about him? Just can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, Tristan was in the portal. Someone reached out to me. We did our homework, and I mean, he's going to be a huge piece to have, right? He's going to be a guy who, adds depth. I laugh. I think I'm closer to Tristan's age than he is to like Mason Maggs or something like that. We were joking about it in the meeting room. So he's an old soul. It'll be good to have kind of a veteran guy, but I mean, he's played in big games. He's won big games. But just to see and just listen to him talk, the way he carries himself, that'll be a vital piece to have in the room for sure.
Did he come visit, or was it mostly just like?
No, yeah, it was an extremely quick process. I know he was packing up a U-Haul, headed somewhere, and then kind of got on the phone, and then he believed in Ohio State. He liked what we had here, and he made a right turn, I guess, and came out this way.
Was he planning to play next year? Or was he planning to coach somewhere?
He was still, he was still in the process. He was just kind of seeing what his options were and kind of going through there.
Was he headed home, and where was he headed? Do you remember?
He was headed to Columbus. That's what I know. He's packing up the U-Haul. I'm not sure where he was headed.
I don't know if
that's a long drive.
This thing is more of a testament to how young you are or how old he is. That's
it's how old he is.
Definitely. Do you like having that as the fourth quarterback in the room, the guy who is maybe a little bit older? He just brings a different dynamic to the room when you do have 3 other guys who are probably a little bit more talented and are probably trying to fight to start here?
Yeah, so we've done it in the past, right? With Chris Chuganoff, Gunnar Hogue, and those guys, if they can come in and, just what value that they can have. And it's just that they've seen a lot of college football versus maybe guys who haven't seen it. And just they definitely help the process and they help the feel, and they're just good to have in their room. So, I love having guys like that.
And recruiting for you right now seems to be, hey, go find a guy. Okay, wait, go find a guy again. What's the difficulties of doing that? And is there any benefit to when you feel like there's more time to be able to make that happen?
So I want to answer your question, expand on that.
Just with Lincoln, you had to go find him late because things happen. With Devin, you had to go find him late because things happen. CJ was kind of the same way because things happen. It just seems like this time around when things happen, that now there's a little bit more time on the clock. You're not trying to find a guy starting in August. Maybe now you're starting to find him now, but there's a little bit more time than August.
Well, I don't think that really our timetable at Ohio State is what we're going to do what we think is best for Ohio State. And a lot of times it's watching a guy play a senior year. It's watching to see what he does and watching to see kind of his progression. So for us, just it's all case by case. So it really doesn't matter what the time is we just are looking for the right guy for Ohio State, if that makes sense.
So, because you can't talk about guys specifically, that's just making this kind of hard here. But when you do spend that much time, building a relationship with some guy, and you feel like you're going to build a class around a certain person, and then you have to change that, regardless of why you have to change it. How does that make your job difficult? How does it make your job? How does it change things for you and how you approach things?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. I'm gonna take that one.
When you were talking about Gunnar and Chris Chuganoff earlier, and their experience helping your room, where does that help the most? Is it watching film? Is it in meetings? Is it practice? Where does that kind of like show up the most? Like that veteran experience in the quarterback room?
No, I mean it's really all aspects of it, right? It's the day-to-day aspect, the way to just a guy like Tristan. He's a 2-time captain, so just the way that he commands himself, the way that he presents himself on the field is unbelievable with what he sees, and then also watching film. And like I believe you said earlier, he does want to be a coach, and so he's diving into it, and he loves to watch film, and so he grabs a guy, or he'll just his veteranness in a room full of young guys. I mean, that's a great piece to have.
It's kind of rare in college because typically you're not going to have it's hard to get somebody to stick around that long or come late in their careers to the spot because last couple of years your quarterback has been really young.
Yeah, no, it definitely takes a right guy for sure.
Corey, as you address specifically Kyle and Devin, what is it you want? What is it you express to them that you want to see over the next couple of 3 months? Here's still what I'm saying about from the standpoint of pick the bull by the horns, don't press. I mean, what do you tell them? What's the encouragement, I guess, you give them, or the advice you give them about this battle that's about to ensue?
Well, I think what we do in what we do in the off-season program with Coach Mick gives all those guys an opportunity to be a leader and just be around the guys. And I think just right now in this point is just how can you be vocal, and we always talk about not really as a leadership aspect is like how can you be felt, like how when you walk into a room people know that hey man, you just walked into a room. Where the great ones that we've had here at Ohio State, you knew exactly when Justin Fields walked into a room, you knew when JT walked into a room, you knew when CJ walked into a room, and I think that just letting them feel you is good, if that makes sense.
Can you truly be that leader though until you are anointed that you are the starting quarterback at Ohio State? Because does it look like maybe, how do you do that without faking it to a certain extent? You understand what I'm saying?
No, yeah, absolutely. But you still have to earn your respect as your teammates, right? And in that weight room over there with Coach Mick puts those guys in some strenuous spots. And you can definitely earn some respect out there. And I think that that's a good opportunity for them to just earn the respect that, man, those guys get after it. Those guys work hard. Those guys put in the work just like we do. Yes. But obviously, when you're the starting quarterback, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and real quick, I asked Ryan, do you really start off with a clean slate? Is this really a blank sheet of paper going into this off-season and spring and stuff with these guys? Is there such a thing? And he said, yeah, pretty much you want to look at it as a race. I mean, I'm paraphrasing him there.
Yeah.
do you have the same approach?
No, there definitely is a blank slate. I think that just the difference is the guys kind of know what areas that they want to work on, they want to improve on, and they want to go on. So, but no, absolutely, it's a blank slate, and it'll be a fun spring for sure.
Apologies if you've been asked this before, but what attributes do Kyle and Devin have that make them fit top rates?
Yeah, that's a great question. They're both different, but I think just the intangibles just right now for Ohio State is running the offense. I think Laffey said bull by the horns, but it's just how can you be efficient and how can you be productive? And I think that those are two things that we're going to look for in the spring, and how you can transition the offense and can you run the offense and can you be those two things, efficient, and then can you execute as well.
How surprising was the coach's decision to go to the NFL draft first? With the new quarterbacks, new starting quarterback next season, how important is that, the center quarterback connection and development?
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's definitely really important, whether it's protections and ID and doing all that, and we'll have some time to really work on that in the spring. But the Luke situation, not the Luke question, but I know Frye and all those guys, they handle that every day. I really wasn't involved too much with that discussion.
There was a lot of focus on the mechanical competition that's going to happen between these quarterbacks, the football competition, the on field. But how much are you guys evaluating intangible things, how guys are reacting to them, how they carry themselves around the team, how guys respond to them? How much of that is part of this evaluation process between now and opening day?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's such a big piece that not a lot of people take into consideration. But I think that a big part of that will start when we start mat drills. It's already started right now in the weight room with Coach Mick, and that's a big piece that I kind of talked about earlier. It's just the team feel you? Do they gravitate you? Yeah, so you for sure take that into consideration. But at the end of the day, it is you got to go out there and you have to execute.
How do you feel like Kyle has handled what has been a tough thing just these past 2 years? He came in very highly recruited, but knew the situation, knew that there was someone a year older than him, just as kind of the situation he's in now on the other side. But to wait your turn, how tough was that for him? And what did he show you guys through that experience?
It's always tough for those guys. It's not just tough for quarterbacks, it's tough for every position. Guys want to come in and they want to play, and you know what? They want to play right now. That's part of the reason that they're Ohio State. But on the flip side, as a player, you have to internally look at it and say, all right, what do I need to do that when my opportunity comes, that I'm ready to maximize on it? So I don't think it's as much of focusing on, I should be playing or I want to play, or it's when my time comes, am I ready to go, if that makes sense.
Coach, what did you see from Devin Brown this year?
In regards just
his attitude on the team, his role in practice here, didn't see him on the field too often, but what do you see from him?
Yeah, Devin's awesome. I mean, he's an athletic kid, great personality. Guys do gravitate to him. But it'll be fun to see when these guys get more reps, and that's what we're excited on in the spring, seeing guys being able to take a lot of reps, and that's really what we're looking forward to.
Have you seen anything that maybe in terms of his game, what he excels at, that sets him apart from some of the other guys that you have in that room?
Yeah, I mean, they're all different. Devin has a skill set. He's athletic, he's mobile, he can extend plays a little bit. I'm not saying that Kyle can't do those things, but I would say that that's something that Devin is kind of his niche.
And then Mason, I believe, spent a lot of time on the practice squad. Is he going to keep that role next year? I know with CJ leaving, Cord kind of moves up a bit, Devin moves up a bit. There is that spot for the third guy on the actual roster here, I'll say, for lack of a better term here. Is he going to be somebody who moves up off that scout team roster?
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, spring, you really don't get into too much scout teams. I mean, I really don't think that we do any of that. It's more just kind of developing yourself, and then when you get into fall camp, that's where you kind of dive into those things. But no, he'll definitely have an opportunity to move up the depth chart for sure.
And then you appreciate having more quarterbacks than less. Do you like having a full quarterback room? I know Coach Day said he likes to have options in there. Just a minute ago, just your thoughts on having more guys than fewer, even if some have to sit?
Look, I think that we can all say this after watching the 49ers. We'll take as many quarterbacks as we can get and get everybody ready to go.
Corey, I'm not sure if you saw the Tom Brady retired news, but Ryan had a pretty cool story just about going down to see Tom Brady play early in his career. I was curious if you have any fun Tom Brady stories and just the reaction to that.
Not crazy Tom Brady stories. We do laugh. Like Coach Day loves Tom Brady. Like all the quarterbacks, we'll throw up a Patriots game, an old Patriots game, or watch something like that. But I mean, he's the best quarterback to ever play. So when you see that, I thought somebody was joking when they told me that he was retiring.
Corey, Ryan mentioned how big the Peach Bowl practices were for Kyle and Devin.
Yeah.
What did you see from them in those practices leading up to Peach Bowl?
Well, I think when Coach Day says that they're important, it's being able to get reps, right? There was, I believe, 3 days that CJ was in New York with the Heisman, and those guys were actually able to take some reps with the ones. They were able to just kind of split reps between that, take reps with the twos, and I just think that there's more reps to go around. And it's not, when he's talking about being important, it's not necessarily what you saw or what you didn't see. It's just getting those reps, and that was 3 full practices where those guys got to get out there and maybe take more than they would normally.
When you could see those reps, speaking on Devin specifically, how much growth have you seen from him to that point to where he was when he first got here?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you were here earlier, but that was a big thing, is just the growth of year 1 to year 2. And now it's, when you first get to Ohio State, it's, learn the system of defense, and then, you learn the system of offense. And then now, once you have a year under your belt and all that stuff second nature, then you can truly start to progress, and you can still truly start to grow as a quarterback.
When you and the staff think about the 2 quarterbacks and sort of evaluating them and what you guys like best, is a part of that feedback from the team itself, what the offensive linemen think, what the skill players think, what they see, in and out of the huddle? Does that factor in at all?
Yeah, I mean, probably not too much.
Sure.
Cool. Appreciate it, guys. I mean, there's nothing better than 40 minutes and not allowed to talk.
I don't have any more scout questions for you. How much of your defense was actually put in where you could actually call things on the field?
I'd say we got out of everything I hoped to do during my time here at Ohio State, we probably got up to maybe 2/3 of it.
Is that better than you hoped for?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's there's a lot to it, and there's a constant management of, how much to put in, and then, because the burden on the players, really, that's where it becomes, and you want them to be able to play fast, and so it's a constant judgment call. But I thought it took me a lot longer other places I've been.
Jim, as the linebackers coach, how exciting is it to have James Laurinaitis coming in to work alongside you?
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's always exciting when you have a guy to come in and coach with you who also has his picture on your wall, I've seen the guy every day for a year, so now to meet him in person, he's a legend, All-American, pro, Buckeye, and having a veteran core of linebackers coming back, I think it's good to have someone come in who can, work with them individually, technique-wise, and maybe do some different things that I've done. So I'm interested to see what he brings in terms of technique, less on the system, but more on how he actually played the position and the things that he believes in.
What do you see in James that makes you think he's going to be a good coach?
He's passionate, he's committed, he understands the game, both the micro and macro detail. He's just a football guy all around, who's intelligent and hardworking, played the game at the highest level. There's so many positives for him in terms of his career.
Jim, much of the conversation at this time last year was you weren't going to make personnel decisions off of the previous season, weren't concerned about that. As a coach now in year 2 for you, and having helped build the roster, been around the roster, coached it for a year, does that give you a head start for spring, or do you still want to go in to March and April with a clean slate?
Yeah, there's not there's film, there's video now. Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's, that's what we're spending our time going through right now. Initially, even before we move on to talk about the system and where we want to go with it, we're talking about each player individually, because you can pull their plays, right, and you can look at their strengths and weaknesses. So now that I have a year under a belt, my job is to say, okay, with the guys we have coming back, what do they do best? And talk about those things. It's not that what I know, but it's what they do best. And now we have video to look at.
How much do you see? You probably have a much clearer picture of what you think it's going to look like in terms of depth chart or personnel or packages, but it's also probably a time of experimentation. What's the balance between those two? How much experimenting would you want to do over those 15 practices?
Yeah, I think the experimentation part of it, which is always fun for guys who are creative to do, probably about 25%. I think we'll want to look at some things, some ideas that I have in spring, in that 25%, but 3/4 of it has to be getting better at the base techniques, things we need to do, to win every game, and the things we, looking at the explosive plays, things that might have hurt us, and being able to show those to the players, and then saying, okay, this is how we're going to fix that. Not necessarily with a call or a creativity, because I like that and I put a lot of onus on myself to do that. Anytime a defense doesn't work, I blame myself. But that's not the world the players live in. They live in, okay, how are you going to get me better, coach, at these fundamentals, techniques? So you have to invest at least 3/4 of spring ball doing that, getting better.
How much of the experimenting will involve Sonny?
Yeah, a lot. He's an interesting athlete, and the guy played in the CFP. You saw we broke him out and did well against premier tight ends. So, yeah, there will be some movement with Sonny. At the same time, you want to settle him in somewhere and allow him just to play, So kind of that 3/4 thing again with him, because there are a lot of ideas and things I have for him. At the same time, I want to see him settle into a position and play.
What can happen for him in the spring? He didn't have that last year. What can happen for him in the next couple of months?
Well, I think he can make tremendous improvements with techniques, really, right? Techniques at the highest level of football, because he's a guy who does see the big picture, and he's got tremendous athletic skills, and he's got the right mindset and attitude, and instinct. So for him, I think it's just the improvements that he's going to make with the techniques of the position.
When you look back on that CFP game against Georgia, how often have you watched film from that game? What do you kind of draw on the most? It was a learning experience.
I only watched it one time so far, probably, and then cut it up and put it into different places. Positives, obviously, in that the adjustments we made, the things we did in the third quarter, that show me and that can show our guys that we can have a defense that wins the national championship. When you look at that, you want to go back and look at how a premier offense and a great quarterback, the things that they did to hurt us. We want to make sure that we look at those, but at the same time, you can emphasize the positives and the good things we did against their tight ends and the things that they were strong at that we did well at. So it's just so valuable because it's the best competition in the country. You know what I mean? So you're not speculating anymore. You can actually say, look, here's how this held up, good and bad, against the best competition in the country.
How much does having both of your linebackers back help you just on the back end time spent with other position groups, since they kind of know the system, they know what you want, and then you kind of do it?
Yeah, that's huge. Getting Tommy and Steele back, those guys now, they know the system, they know me, we work so well together. I feel like they made massive improvements throughout the season. I've broken down them individually, so now I can kind of give them a plan on what we want to do. And you're right, it is not a position of stress because you feel good about them, and I can really look at working with some other areas.
They both expressed where they can get better at a little bit. Where do you see improvement that they can make? Because they said improvement is why they want to come back in the first place.
Yeah. You know, Steele is a guy who has, you know, very coachable, has athletic skills. So we want to really work with Steele on his hands and like the inside fight, like inside the box. He operates well on the perimeter, and he did fine inside. But I think as he grows in his career and next level stuff, he's going to have to face those physical challenges inside by really using his hands more. And I think there's a lot of things that we can do with Tommy in terms of pass coverage and getting him involved in getting his hands on the ball more, just working with him more on route progression and those kind of things.
Jim, Coach Day said after the game and then a while ago to us, you know, obviously the big plays, the explosive plays that went for touchdowns especially were killer. What have you redressed in your brain, in your mind, during maybe sleepless nights or not over the last month of maybe how to switch things up a little bit, or you understand what I'm saying? How much does it haunt you, I guess, to a certain extent?
Oh, it haunts me all the time. But I mean, you know, switching things up, you know, that's not the answer, because I think we do that well enough. I think when you look at the extensiveness of our package and the different call, you know, we had enough change-ups, but it's a matter to me of you know, like any time a play goes bad, you know, I always want to critique myself on the call on that play and that situation, and you know, if I had it back, blah blah blah, you know, what would I do? Those are the things that keep me up. But really, it's just about the technique of and I've got to be, you know, now that I'm coming into year 2, I've got to be even more demanding and push and put on more steam with the players individually on the preciseness of the technique. You know, that's and I got to really bear down. You know, I mean, you're coming in the first year and you want to make sure that everybody has, you know, that you make that connection with everybody. And now's the time for me to use it. You know, I need to use that connection and really push. Now I need to push, you know, and hone down on those techniques, because you know we have enough on film now to show. Look at this technique; it's the same play that we did here, and then we gave it up here. You know, so the bear is in the detail, and that's what I really need to push.
Yeah, and if the ball does come out, it does end up being a one-on-one battle a lot, right? I mean,
a lot. A lot.
If y'all redressed it all, though, maybe, I don't know, not having a safe, for one of another term, not having a deep safety back no matter what. You understand what I'm saying? Because a couple of those plays could have at least not gone the distance if there maybe been somebody there. I mean, I'm just getting in your brain.
Yeah, no, and I look at that. I do, and I also look at the times we did have a deep safety back and we didn't make the play. You know what I mean? You know, I mean, there are those too. So, I don't know. Everything gets looked at. And like I said, when a play goes bad, I blame myself, you know, because they're always, I always think I should have made a different call, you know, because that's the onus I put on myself. Like you said, I should have been in this, I should have been in that. Those are things I really keep to myself, because those don't affect the players. The players want to know, okay, you made this call. How do I get better? How do I get better at that call? You know, what did I do wrong, you know, in my technique? You know, and how do I get you better at that technique on that call? And like I said, the bear is in the detail. I got to really hone down and push and you know, to take these guys to you know, a higher level in their performance. I mean, that's, you know, and that's. But that's why you build relationships, and that's why you come to Ohio State, because they want that. So we have time here now to bear down, see the mistakes, see the good things, and keep pushing.
One quick, you might have been asked this, but what do you hope to get out of James Laurinaitis? Here's a guy that won every award you could win, 3-time All-American. He's showed he's serious about coaching, this past season and stuff. What do you hope to get from him? What do you hope he brings to the table?
I think, number one, he brings that love and passion for Ohio State and instant credibility with recruits and players. Instant credibility. Yeah. And then what he can do with it, like I was saying earlier, is that, okay, we have a system, we have veterans, and now let's see what kind of techniques and nuance, that's the technique and nuance that he brings to the position, whereas I may have coached something one way, he can say, well, this is how I did it, or this is how we did it in the NFL, this is what helped me make plays. This is what he say, I made a lot of plays using this technique, so the system's going to be the system, but he can bring a lot of new things to our players, and that'll be good for them.
Jim, in the safety spot, you probably have more moving parts there maybe than anywhere else in the defense. Tanner going, Ronnie going as the adjuster. How do you see that group shaking out? Who are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lathan's going to have the ability to play both the bandit and the adjuster. I think Josh Proctor, I'm really hoping to come into his own. We know he has skill, and I'm really hoping him, looking for him to make a push this year. Sonny, Sonny's going to be somewhere, and you're right, there's a lot of moving parts. Where is he going to be? But he's a talented guy. Kai Stokes, coming out of last spring, was like, wow, this kid can play. He didn't really get a chance to this year. And we haven't seen Cam much at nickel because, of injuries. I mean, when I've seen him healthy, I've been really impressed with him. Reminds me of a guy we had at Duke who's in the NFL now, Michael Carter, who's, maybe a shorter guy, but just dynamic with his feet. I think Cam, the sky's the limit for him. And then Jihad we got, so, I mean, you like watching him on film. So yeah, a lot of moving parts, but I feel like there's a chance for us to even get better there.
Does Jihad fit the nickel spot he played? I think
yeah, he could. He played both nickel and high safety. That's he has a lot of tools. So we'll try him out in both areas because he's, we're going to see where he fits best because I think he can help us for sure.
Do you like all that interchangeability? It seems like guys.
I love the interchangeability at safety. I do, because here's what happens. Formations flip. All of a sudden it's formation into the boundary or the short side of the field. Now guys take on different roles. Things happen all the time. So as much flexibility as you can have at the safety position, the better.
Is that more than you had last year?
I think there's a chance. Particularly as you move. Now guys continue to understand the system. I think there's a real chance for us to be even more flexible.
Do you think that Latham is really in a position to blossom, actually having a normal off-season, full year?
Yeah, I mean, I have all the faith in Latham, and yeah, he's got a chance to have an off-season, to be healthy, to study and improve his game and be a leader for us.
It feels like a lot of times when we ask Coach Day about breakdowns, either side of the ball in the last year or two, he essentially said the breakdowns are due to one of three things. It's coaching, it's scheme, or it's personnel. Should we read into the fact that there have been lots of changes with personnel in the back end of the defense, guys leaving, guys coming in, beyond just the normal attrition of, hey, you've got incoming freshmen, guys that are graduating?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that was all kind of natural stuff, and guys who maybe see a better opportunity somewhere else. But honestly, I don't feel like there's anything to read into there. I think we're in good shape and really like our players.
You talk about playing offense on defense. What have you seen in the recruitment of Jermaine Matthews and watching him and evaluating him as a high school receiver?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to bring, and energy. He's a pretty dynamic kid. You know, and we offered him late, like I guess late as you consider it now in that procedure, you know, because it was like camp last year. And then he just exploded his senior year. So, I mean, I'm really excited. You really, when a guy commits, you really don't know what he's going to do senior year, but he really showed that he's a playmaker.
I think Ryan said back in the December signing day, like, you really worked him out, and he had to kind of like maybe take it a little easier on him. But what did you see in that gym day?
I mean, yeah, we kind of took him into the deep water, I call it. You know what I mean? And he just, you know, I saw the feet and the quickness but then really what you see too is the fact that he did it all with a smile on his face, and I think that's important because he had the right attitude.
Jim, it's obviously a luxury to have Tomlin steal back, but how do you manage the reps in practice for a 4-2-5 system when you still got young guys that you want to develop as well?
Yeah, we'll those older guys in spring won't get as many reps. You know, you'll because we know what they can do. You kind of have enough to keep them fresh, and maybe you want to teach them a couple new things here and there. But for the most part, you want to work, you know, those young guys, make sure they get the reps.
Some guys that played here, and the truth is, our job as a coaching staff and as a team are to find the best players at every position, no matter what the circumstances are. So we have some guys that have a leg up on each other from some experience perspective, but the best guy will kick, and that's kind of what we're trying to find out this spring.
What did you see from Parker Lewis last year, even though he didn't play?
He's a powerful kicker. He's talented. He really is. You know, he started 2 seasons at Southern Cal, and so that's one of the guys I mentioned that has experience in other places. And so, you know, he's going to be right in the mix, and we got to figure out kind of, you know, he was ineligible to start the season, so he was behind a little bit some of the other guys, and that's why this spring will be really big.
How much does Jaden's experience on kickoffs factor into now having a chance at that field goal spot?
It does. You know, playing in any game, in any role, is experience. Obviously, he didn't kick any field goals or extra points during the season, but because he was the travel guy and the kicker that was kicking off, he was our backup all last season. So he got extra reps during practice, and those will be very beneficial for him. But they won't really, you know, they're different than what we're going to go through in the spring. That's kind of now we're going to see who's the one.
What's your communication been like with Noah over the past month? Have you had to kind of make sure his spirits stay up with the way things ended?
Noah's a tough dude. I didn't have to make sure his spirits were up. They were, you know, it was. I talked to him immediately after the kick. I talked to him in the locker room later. My wife and I saw him right after. You know, it was one of those. You can't prepare for that. You can't. You know, until you do it and you go through it, it's, you know, really tough. But then we talked, you know, the days and the weeks, and I talked to him yesterday. You know, it's one of those things. He's in a good place, but it was hard.
To, you know, make that decision in the moment. Like, how much confidence did you have that he could make that kick?
All the confidence in the world. I mean, the guy just made a 48-yarder. He's been a, you know, really good player for us. He's been unflappable. That's, you know, that's who he was. You know, he like I said, he made a 48-yarder maybe 5 minutes before that, and you know, didn't go in. It's one of those things where he'd love to have it back, but he doesn't get it. And, you know, there's no one else I'd rather have in that spot in that moment. I trusted him fully.
I know Ryan Day talks a lot about young guys to bring their stripes on special teams.
Sure.
By the way, offense, how you get out of that younger contingent this year, who stood out most to you?
You know, I'm trying to think of who. A bunch of. I mean, young is such a relative term now. With, you know, the youngest guy on our team, Sonny Styles, he played a lot, you know, on special teams. But then you've got other young. I mean, that's once again, I don't know who's young and who's not. Chip was a first-year player for us. Chip played a lot for us on special teams. You know, my favorite example is obviously an older guy now, but look at, you know, Mitch Rossi and Xavier Johnson. You know, who do you trust more than those guys? And X is scoring a touchdown against Notre Dame and then one against Georgia. You know, that's where X made his life, you know, and he still does. Even though now that he's playing on offense, he's still a big-time special teams guy. But young guys, Sonny Styles, CJ, as you saw, played. CJ Hicks, that is, not CJ Stroud, but played on special team. A bunch of guys did a really nice job. Caden Curry made a bunch of tackles. You know, the list goes on and on for some of those true young guys.
How was CJ Hicks doing?
He's doing well. You know, he's in a good place. He's got same deal as all these other guys, but he's going to have a tough spring, and that's the life we live here. So
you think back to 2019, obviously a really close loss to Clemson. I know that the 2020 circumstances were pretty unique, right? There was obviously an awful lot of build-up to wanting to play that season because of the frustrating last-minute loss.
Sure.
Do you feel much of that going into next year, or is it too early?
The team's just getting back together. I mean, there's definitely a hungry group. If you look at some of the guys that have chosen to come back, I'm really excited about that group of guys. Some of our older players. You're right, though. The 19 to 20 team that year was so different, and it almost culminated in a weird way for us. With we lost in the championship game, but we beat Clemson after a whole year of hearing and working towards that, and then we didn't play our rival that year, so a lot of that energy kind of got put into that last, that Clemson game instead of the up north game. Time will tell kind of how that season impacts us and how that end of the season impacts, but we got a hungry team right now, and that's kind of what you want. So,
Mark, we don't get to talk to you that much, so there's some interesting things that happen to have some specific questions about.
Sure.
We all know that what's been discussed with the call on the fake in the Michigan game that didn't get executed. Can you just
experience from practice to games to the preparation to being on the road recruiting to being in airports to being in hotels? The Block O is real, and you're talking about a national, worldwide brand. That's what we are, and that's motivation in itself. Each and every day I wake up. And the other thing that being here for a year and going through this experience, spring, summer, fall, is it's a family affair. Your family's just as much involved and as passionate as I am about being the very best version of ourselves. And so it's been great. Like I said, come here to win national championships, to be the very best we can be, and we continue to strive to do that.
To what extent were you involved in the evaluation process with Jahad Carter? What attracted you to him? What stands out about his play?
First and foremost, the relationship. It's about relationships. That's kind of how it started. He saw there was a need there. There was great chemistry between me and him. He came in. He wasn't here very long, but we hit it off. And, he understands he wants to be developed. And that's where we do our best work in developing young men on and off the field. And excited he's here. We just had 6:30 workouts this morning, and he was doing a good job. And so I'm excited about what he's going to continue to do this offseason going into spring ball.
You said he saw a need. Is that at nickel? And what might make him excel in that spot?
No, right now everybody's in an evaluation period. I'm going to put the best players on the field to make us the very best we can be, not only in the back end, but as a defense and as a team. And so everybody knows, especially, obviously, it's a safety-driven defense. Everybody has their own little niche. But as a safety group, we got to be able to do more than one thing. So right now we're still in the evaluation process, and it's a fluid situation.
You guys are going to bring in great players every year. You're Ohio State. But what's the reception like, and what's the message like to the team, the guys who have been here for 2 or 3 years? When you bring in a guy like Jahad, who's got starting experience at the Power 5 level, and then you say, hey, this guy's coming in, but also everything is open because it's still January. Like, what is that conversation like with the guys who are already in the room?
I think it's the old adage, iron sharpens iron. You come to Ohio State to be the best. You come to Ohio State to win national championships. You come to Ohio State to play in the National Football League. You come to Ohio State as a DB because we're best in America, and the long line of great players that have come through here. So when you step in the door that this is what it is, and each and every year, each and every day, each and every minute, you got to bring your very best. That's what makes us who we are. And for me as the coach to see young men each and every day, like this morning at 6:30 during our running, that guys are grinding, guys are working. There's no substitute for that. So for guys that come here, whether they signed as a freshman or whether they came in as a transfer, they understand the expectations. They understand the magnitude of each and every day. You got to bring it. And I don't want to be anywhere else but a place like that.
Harry, you lost Rocket and Tanner, obviously, but you got Nathan back. You got Josh back, which did you expect that? How happy were you that those guys returned? You got a deep unit right now. How do you kind of just feel generally about your unit?
First and foremost, I love the young men. they've worked extremely hard. Obviously, Lathan coming back. Young men have to understand where they're at, and they got to be comfortable with, there's still more growth for me. There's still more I need to do in order to finish what I started here before I go on to the next level. And Josh is the same. There's some things he wants to finish. There's some things he wants to accomplish as a team as well as individually. And so, but that's their decision. And it's just cool for me to be able to sit down with them and say, hey, Coach, I want to come back. I feel I need to come back. And these are the things that I feel I need to do for the team as well as myself to prepare for this year to win a championship and also next level.
With Josh in particular, he gets hurt in 21. He would have been a big part of that defense. Has high expectations for last year. It didn't happen. The process of getting him, keeping him mentally, the right way, and then the decision to come back. How big was that for him and you?
Relationships, having clear, concise communication, being able to keep everything in perspective, and so like I said, for him, the opportunity to come back and have a chance to first and foremost win a championship with his brothers, and then two, be a better football player, continue to develop to be the very best version of himself. So I'm excited, and to see him running around this morning and working out and with a smile on his face, it's encouraging. And there's a long process within this, but I've seen good things from him so far.
With Lathan, that was a pretty big play when he fell. How has he kind of dealt with that? Kind of a month removed from that play happening, and how have you kind of helped him through that?
It's the life we live. Me being a DB myself, you play DB long enough, you're going to get beat, and it's how you respond. Obviously, the magnitude of that game magnifies that specific play. You just bounce back. You got to have a short memory, just like a quarterback that throws an interception. You got to bounce back, and really and truthfully, how you respond is going to be the defining, moment and outlook on who you are. One, first and foremost, as a young man, and then two, as a football player. So, obviously, it was disappointing, and he's made a million plays, and that was one play that we didn't execute at a high level. And I say we, because I'm very much involved with it as him. He just bounced back. He's determined to be even better. And that's the thing I love about him. He's resilient, he's tough, and we don't make excuses. We didn't execute the way we needed to, and we're back working to make sure that those things don't happen.
And with Sonny, you guys have spoken highly of him all year, but that's still a 17-year-old who's not supposed to be here. And then he's playing significant stops for you in probably the biggest game all year. At what point in bowl practice did this go from being, this kid's coming along pretty well, to we can actually use him this season?
You earn everything you get here. Nobody's given anything. You earn what you get here. You earn what you get in the secondary. You earn what you get in the safety room. So there's no handouts. And the thing, like I said, I appreciate most about Sonny is he came in and worked. There was no entitlement. Yeah, he was the number one player and all that, but you would have never thought that the minute he stepped foot in the door. So he earned the right to be on that stage and play the role that he played. And that's just a credit. I tell guys it's not about their age, it's about your mindset. And he has a great mindset, and he's very coachable, and he wants to be the very best he can be. So, what you saw that night was something that he earned. And that would continue to be the case moving forward for all the guys in the room.
And that skill set, that athleticism, he's a very different body type. Most safeties in the country are. When you have something like that, does it kind of get your mind thinking about not just what you can do with him, but maybe how that impacts the way you want to use some of the other safety positions, depending on where you want to put him at?
Yeah, I'm thankful for his mom and dad. Little DNA there, but the thing for Sonny is, he's smart. His football IQ is extremely high to be that young, and that's a credit to, his coach. That's a credit to his dad. That's a credit to his upbringing, and that's a credit to his great focus and discipline. And so the exciting thing is we haven't really even scratched the surface of what he can be, and I can see him being. And so that's what's exciting. That's what's exciting about the offseason right now. That's what's exciting about getting 15 practices spring ball. That's what's exciting about going into summer, because this is his first spring ball. He didn't have spring ball last year. So, there's a huge ceiling, but the biggest thing I love about him is he's focused, he's humble, and he's locked into taking it one day at a time.
Harry, how have you guys as a staff, especially in the secondary area, addressed those huge plays that were given up in Michigan in the Georgia game? What have y'all gone back and looked at, or that can be remedied, fixed, etc.?
It comes down to fundamentals, technique, and execution. Now as simple as that sounds, it comes down to those three things. And really and truthfully, you watch it, you address it, and then you attack it when we get on the field. Yeah. And you put them in those very positions the best we can to make sure those things don't happen again. But at the end of the day, probably the most frustrating thing, it came down to those three things. And I know that we're more than capable of doing those things.
So have y'all addressed, though, maybe y'all as a staff put some people in some situations that were, uncomfortable for them? I'm talking about player-wise. What did y'all specifically address in those areas, I guess?
No, those guys had made those plays several times. It just, once again, it came down to a lack of fundamentals, technique, and execution. They weren't put into any situations that they hadn't been put in the past. And they'll tell you that. The one thing we won't ever do, we don't make excuses. We didn't execute the way we needed to, period, point blank. And so a lot of times, with that being said, you can kind of go back and say, well, this, well, that. No, we didn't do that. I didn't prepare them well enough. They didn't execute well enough. And that's why we're here this fall, this spring, this off season, grinding, because, we should have been there. And we should have made those plays. So there'll never be any excuses. The bottom line is I've got to coach them better, and they've got to execute better, and we will.
Harry, what's your first impressions? You guys haven't been on the field yet, but what's your first impressions when you see Malik in the weight room, training, things like that?
Malik's extremely explosive, plays bigger than what he is right now. That's kind of the task that he knows, just being a pro about, putting the weight on. Our nutrition staff's doing a phenomenal job with him. And this, the biggest thing is he's smart. He's got a high football IQ. He's very, very versatile. So we're going to be able to do a lot of things with him. And the cool thing is he's here. He's here. He's here working out. He's here, early morning workouts. He's going to get 15 practices in. So I'm excited, on a number of fronts from him. But I've seen great progress from him in these 2 weeks.
And then there's a lot of sample size now of Jim's defense and the safeties in it at Ohio State, not just on his Oklahoma State film. Seems like teams late in the season were putting your safeties in one-on-ones, whether it was Cam or Lathan. Has there been any talk between you and Jim and Tim about maybe cross-training more than you guys did last year, safety and corner, so when you get put in those positions again next year, it doesn't happen the way that it did this year?
It's a fluid situation. We know our personnel. We know our guys' strong suits. And we know in this defense we have to be multiple and versatile. I think with a year under our belt, we'll definitely be even much improved. And we understand the challenges that lie ahead of us, and we're addressing those every day.
Did you already speak on Jihad Carter, and just what's your first impressions?
Workmanlike.
The kid from Syracuse.
Workmanlike. He's got his head down and he's working. Once again, he came here because he wanted to be developed to be the very best. He understands the task that's at hand. It's competition. And the old adage, iron sharpens iron. And so far he's done a great job. He's just put his head down and worked, and that's all I ask. And he came here for a reason. He came here, one, to be the very best he can be, two, to win, a championship, and to put himself in the very best position he can going on to the next level.
Harry, when you say that you know your personnel, does that mean you already go into spring, you're going to be here, bandit, adjuster, nickel, or is there any sort of experimentation that you guys will do throughout March and April to find it?
I've got a pretty good idea, but also what the spring allows you to do is experiment with some different things, because you're preparing to win the Big Ten, and then you're preparing to go off, and play in the playoffs and win a national championship. So understanding our personnel better, allows you to do that going into year 2 of spring ball. The other thing is they know the system now, so there's some nuances that we can add or subtract, but also you do have a chance to, in the spring, experiment now that they've been around me for a year, I've been around them, they know how I move, I know how they move, and so that's what's exciting for me year 2, spring 2, is having the ability now to say, okay, hey, today, let's do this. hey, today let's do this, because it's our job as coaches to kind of have some forethought for what's to come in the future.
Yeah, I guess as an amateur on the outside, you look at it and say, well, you've got 5 or 6 guys that you could play. How do you? I think we know that maybe Cam and Jihad play in the nickel. Lathan could probably play any of those 3 spots. Like, it's hard to figure what's it going to look like, because it does seem like you have more flexibility or versatility depending on what happens in March.
Right. And you said it best, the versatility. I want guys that can do multiple things. So we can keep the offense. We can keep, who's trying to scout us off balance. Plus, I want to play to our strengths. I want to play to each and every individual's, strengths. And then where they're challenged, you got to continue to bridge the gap there. So that's what's exciting for me, and that's the part of the experimental part in the spring that, hey, there may be days where we try some different things, because we do want to play with different combinations to see what fits the best and what's going to give us the very best advantages as we go into fall.
Harry, what's the conversation like with Croc and his decision to come back? I mean, it seemed, I think most people assumed that wasn't in the realm of possibility, and now he's coming back, and where does he fit into this room for you?
Croc's he's a phenomenal athlete. He's dynamic, and I think obviously with the injuries before I got here, that kind of set him back a little bit, especially trying to come in and learn a new scheme, coming off of an injury, not being able to go through spring ball last year, and then trying to play catch up in the summer. So I think for Proc, just coming to the realization that, man, I want to put in some more work. I want to go out a winner. With my brothers and my teammates, and I want to position myself and develop even more before I leave this place. So I think for him it was more of a personal goal from, I want to do better for my teammates and win, and then 2, position myself better to be an impact player before I leave this place.
When you have a guy make a decision like that that's sort of unexpected, you add a player like Jihad Carter, you have young guys or guys that have been in the program for a few years waiting for their moment, and now you have new players who are brought in with the expectation that they're here to compete and probably play. If you have a guy like Josh who's in his 6th year, you expect that he's going to at least have a real opportunity to take something. Right. How do you adjust the conversations with other guys?
The cream will rise. I mean, it's as simple as that. Through off-season workouts, through spring ball, the cream will rise. The guys that deserve to be starters or play, because you got to have depth. I mean, our plan is to play well into January. So you got to have depth. So it makes for a long season. So for us, I want depth. I want guys that have different skill sets. And so Josh knows that, as well as each and every individual in that safety room. They understand that each and every day you have to bring it. Each and every day you have to come with your mind right. Each and every day you have to compete. And nothing is going to be given to you. So there's no guarantees for him. He understands that he still has to put in the work, just like each and every other one of his brothers.
You say that cream will rise. Eventually, there's got to be a point where you have tough conversations with some guys, though. Do you kind of let that all play out and then toward the end of the spring do that? Or how do you handle that? Because like he said, you bring in a guy who expects to play. You bring back a guy who expects to play. You've got other guys who are veterans but are coming back from injury or, still trying to find their way. At what point do you need to kind of start to sort a few things out?
You be proactive. I mean, those tough conversations have been had already. So everybody understands exactly where they're at. Everybody understands exactly what's expected of them individually and expected of them in the room. So it makes the transition, the process going in the off season, the process going into spring ball a lot easier and more flow, because we have clear and concise and direct conversations ahead of time. And so that's the way I like it. That's the way our room is. It's open, and so I don't foresee there being any issues. Everybody understands exactly what's in front of them. Now it's time to go get it.
As a coach, philosophically, how challenging is it to not just look at guys like Josh and Guy and Sonny and say, those guys got to be out there because they're freaks among freaks, right? But then there's the other part of the game where you have to balance how smart is he playing, how controlled is he playing. How do you balance what you see as the top athletes you can put out there versus the best player?
It's just a process of understanding who they are from a mental standpoint, who they are from a physical standpoint. What are we going to ask them to do, and where do they fit in the matrix of our defense as we go into spring ball? And that's part of the experiment. experimenting in the spring, with some different things, some different combinations. The cool thing is we've got a ton of talent. We got a ton of guys that are hungry. We got a ton of guys that have an edge right now. And when those games like that happened on the 31st happen, that's what happens. Guys come back with a different mindset, a different hunger, understanding that, okay, it's not cool to just be right there. We got to finish what we started. And we talked about that from the very beginning of we're here to win national championships. And so for us, as far as a safety group, it's just about going to work and putting our head down and understanding that if I grind and I do the things that I'm coached to do, I do the things that I'm asked to do, the cream will rise and I will find myself on the field in some capacity, to help this football team win.
Hey, Barry. Mark, thanks for coming out here. How has it been this past month since the end of the Peach Bowl? What's basically been on your mind? How have you just didn't embrace the offseason so far?
It hasn't been an offseason. Been busy. One, transfer portal, trying to add a couple more guys to help the roster, which we've done a pretty good job at. And then secondly, I've had some staff guys move on. Zach Graham went to Cincinnati and Cass Simmons. So great opportunity for those guys. And Zach Wicke just took a GA job at Akron, so I'm in the process of filling those spots these last few weeks.
Ryan's touched on a lot about the state of NIL and whatnot and where Ohio State is in comparison to other programs. Just what's your take on where Ohio State is in NIL and the situation that's here at this point?
Yeah, I'll defer, what Ryan said earlier. But, it's a real thing. We deal with it. And my only comment is I just hope there's a lot of really smart people in this profession that we can all come together and get a solution to this as quickly as possible.
How many hours a day or people do you have to put on monitoring the portal and everything? Because that's become a very real part of this whole process. So we can sit here and say, well, you didn't sign any kids today, but the portal seems to be in this.
Yeah, so we have a full-time staff member, Billy Homer, longtime NFL scout, and came from the University of Florida. That's his full-time job. He's in charge of the portal, and so the month of December and January have been very hectic for him. So he's done a great job for us to be ahead of the curve and doing a great job with his evaluations to find guys who might be a great fit.
A lot of armchair quarterbacks out there like, well, you need this and you need this and you need this, but just how difficult is it to vet all these portal guys and to find people that actually fill needs, because pretty much every portal person that's come into Ohio State is hit.
Yeah, it's a great point. So a lot of vetting going on. We want to make sure, most importantly, they're a great fit, because we feel like we have a great culture and great players here. So we want to make sure that it's all going to mesh well. We don't want to bring someone in and it's going to cause a disruption with the current players. Now we do want competition, and we'll never take a guy because we're scared that we may lose anybody here. So, but we do want to make sure it's going to be an upgrade. We don't want to just bring guys in to bring guys in, and the worst thing you can do is bring in a guy and they expect to start, and that doesn't happen, because that can just ruin a locker room as well. So guys we've brought in the past been home runs, and hopefully we continue to hit on those.
In the first few times that a transfer portal player is here, got to imagine a lot of that is instilling the culture that Ohio State has, which we've said is different than a lot of the different places. How long of a learning curve is that usually to get people accustomed to how you do things here?
I think the new guys, when they first come in, are just kind of feeling their way around and kind of figuring out how they belong and how they fit. But we brought in some great character kids, and they get entrenched, and our guys have done a great job bringing them in as well and making them feel welcome. So both ways, it's been a great adjustment.
Does that mean maybe then it's easier to do that if they're all still automatically trying to find a new fit and they're willing to take that on?
Yeah, as long as they come in with the right attitude and put their head down and work hard, our guys are very willing to embrace them and show them the way.
In your eyes, what is the right approach? What is the right attitude to have coming in here?
Yeah, just come in to compete for a spot, and knowing that nothing has been given to them, and just have that mindset of like, hey, I see these guys out here grinding. Here's what it takes to be at an Ohio State level. Here's the expectations, and they're out here, trying to fit in as well.
I'm not sure how many of those prospective guys will watch this, but in your eyes, what's the best way to make a first opinion to you, or first impression rather to you?
Yeah, just come in, put your head down, and work as hard as you can, especially at this time of the year with Mick. These workouts are getting pretty hard. So see how they fit in with those.
Mark, how did your job change when you go from director of player personnel to general manager? Now you don't have a director of player personnel again. Like, how is that affecting what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, a month of January's been hectic just with Zach leaving, and so I've been having to pick up his spot too. But just as far as the overall role, Coach Day, if anybody watches Yellowstone, it's like my job now is to run the ranch, not necessarily work the ranch. And so, it's more of an overseeing. We have a great staff here. I mean, Aaron's a rock star. Zach did a great job in the year he was here. So more of being a support system to them. I've been trying to help out as much as I can in the NIL world of just with our current roster and taking some stuff off Coach Day's plate during the season with that. So I'm always still going to be entrenched with the film evaluations, both on the high school and the college side, and really just being a support mechanism for Aaron with all the on-campus visits, still kind of helping out with the creative team, being an asset to them. But really less in the weeds of the day-to-day communication with recruits and more taking the back seat of, just in the big picture role.
You've been here with Ryan for almost 5 years, but you're still come up with Urban. The mentality is a little different. The control freak aspect. How hard is it for you to give away trust to someone like Zach for a year and then he's gone, and now you have to start that again because you obviously have your hands on a lot of this stuff. But is that harder than you imagine because you have to let go of some of this stuff, or do you find yourself like diving back into it even though you don't want to?
A little bit of both. It always is in me of like the way I came up in this profession. It was really a 1 or 2 person shows. So nowadays it's 10 or 11 people per staff. So I still have that in me where I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty because that's the way I grew up, and so it'll always be a part of me. But at the same time, having 2 twins at home and being a father and good husband and having a lot on my plate as it is now with NIL and it's not really recruiting 1 or 2 classes anymore. It's recruiting 3 or 4 at a time and having those evaluations ready and having your eyes on those. So it takes a lot of time as well anyway. And so I have to do a good job delegating or else I'll go crazy.
You're like the voice of player management, player personnel in college football. When you have a problem, it becomes a problem for everyone. It feels like. How do you deal with this NIL stuff with other programs? Like, are you talking to their guys? Are you guys working on something together? How do you approach it as a general collective?
It seems more of a venting session with each other. Everybody's kind of secretive about what they're doing specifically. Like I mentioned earlier, though, I think there's a lot of smart people in this profession. We all just need to get in a room and figure this out quickly because I don't think there's a lot of people who enjoy what's going on, and I think NIL isn't what it was intended to be. And so, I'm raising my hand to help any way I can to get this solutions to get this fixed.
Maybe this has already been asked, but with changes in the landscape, does that alter maybe how you deploy the net in terms of when you just start approaching the class and maybe how you allocate some resources, or what? Is there any way to describe that?
Yeah, definitely a new mindset of how we're going to have to approach things during this time. So obviously way more heavy in Ohio and the Midwest. And then regionally, we're going to do our best as we've always has, but we may have to pull out of some recruiting some guys nationally quicker than we have if we know right away that NIL is going to be a main factor in the recruitments. It's just probably not something we're going to end up being able to compete with, by choice as well. And is that something we want to bring into the locker room as well? So, those are the conversations we have, in this day.
Is that something too where then there's probably maybe more kids overall that you're trying to maintain relationships with at the beginning and into the kind of the intermediate area at least?
Yeah, obviously we're going to do our due diligence on everybody as usual, and then we just really have to do a better job vetting and seeing what's really important. We want kids, first of all, to want to come to Ohio State because of Ohio State and the great tradition, history of all the guys who've been here before them. And that number one thing that we win, why we win, is that culture in that locker room. And so we can't do anything that's going to take away from that.
You guys kind of learn anything over the years about how to manage the guys that maybe definitely want to be Buckeyes, but you're not completely sure in February or March that they're the guys you want yet? I mean, of course, you know what I mean. Does that develop how you kind of maintain relationships with those guys over the years? I mean, have you learned things over the years, I guess?
Yeah, I think you're constantly learning and growing and evolving. But, when they get here on campus, you try to do the best job. It's almost like a job interview for them, and we're feeling them out. They're feeling us out. And we're just trying to make sure they're a great fit.
Is that easier now with travel and everything, all the visits and everything are allowed again and everything like that too?
Oh, post-COVID, much better and easier.
Beneficial to local people,
yes.
I guess, too.
Yeah, the more times we can get them on campus, the more time our coaches can get to their high schools, the more opportunities to get information and gather information and learn about them learn about us.
With the kids where you're going to pull out of recruitments where it's clearly the kids, it's like, how much money can you give me? But that's not every kid. There are some kids where it's almost like, I have no choice. I can't pass this up. How do you differentiate those types of kids when you're going through a recruiting process, especially now where you might feel like you have a kid and then somebody offers them a type of money that you couldn't even pass out at 17 years old?
Yeah, it's conversations we have all the time, just going through names and where we're at on guys and what's going to make this kid make a decision. Is it going to be NIL? Is it going to be development and brotherhood and culture and winning and all the great things this place has to offer? Or is it going to be strictly because of money? And so those are the conversations we have. The worst thing we can do is waste a lot of time and effort on kids knowing that, and then we lose them at the end of the day. So, you know what? We have those conversations daily of just the vetting process and gathering as much information as we can.
Can that sometimes change where you get a kid, you think it's about all that stuff, and then over time, the other part of this starts to play more of a factor?
Yeah, you have agents now, you have 7-on-7, you have all those people who are trying to get to these kids, and so we do the best we can of just knowing the circle, knowing the character, knowing the family background, just all those. You're asking a lot of questions now, just trying to feel it out.
Do you ever talk to donors or the people sponsoring the NIL money? Do you ever talk to them?
No, those are for the collectives for them to handle. So we try to stay out of it.
You don't call that. What's your average day like?
Majority of the day is watching film. Probably, during the season from 8 to 9 hours a day, just watching film. Trying to, help the coaches any way we can as well, of just all the day-to-day operations, anything to get off Coach Day's plate. But most of my time is just the day-to-day upkeep of the board and watching film, whether it's 24, 25s, and unfortunately now even 26s. So.
You might have already been asked about this, Mark, but and Coach Day was talking about this, just the frustration level of you guys would know you would land X recruit, but, if not for NIL. Speak about the frustration level when that happens.
Yeah, I think just this year is the learning curve of how it actually, you're feeling it the hard way, but, now that we've been through a full cycle, I think we'll go into this class with a better mindset of, spending our time and resources in certain areas versus others.
I think it says a lot, though, speaking of NIL, that you guys were able to retain so many players. Speak about that a little bit, too.
Yeah, no, that's been huge. That's been a lot of time with Coach Day, and, just the, our current team and our current retention is what NIL is for. The guys that have, really earned their namesake through their play on the field, and now with their name, image, and likeness, they're able to capitalize on that. And I think at a place like Ohio State, 15th largest city, with the power of this brand and the fan base, our guys are cashing in right now because of that. So that's what it was meant to be, and we're glad that they're having that opportunity.
And I know the NCAA finally is going to crack down, allegedly. There was a report a couple days ago from SI that it sounds like they're taking it seriously. It's got to make you guys feel good.
You're hopeful.
Trying to do
the
right thing.
Hopeful until it actually happens.
Mark, apologies
if you've been asked before, but the way that the portal is nowadays, your job has increased tenfold. How do you keep everything straight?
So anyway, yeah, just being organized. That's luckily a strength of mine. Is I think my organization. And like I mentioned, Billy Homer that's his full-time role is to handle the portal. So as he's watching guys, he'll pass them on to me. Just get a second set of eyes, and then he's doing a great job working with the coaches to start that vetting process as we come across names.
Mark, how would you assess your 23 class as a whole? Some high-end talent at the top 5 class, but yet a high-end couple of misses. How would you kind of assess the whole 23 class?
Yeah, overall in this NIL world, I think we're very pleased. We signed 20 guys. The number may not be as high, but I think that's mostly because we had a lot of guys return back, whether it was Kate Stover, Xavier Johnson, Tommy Eichenberg. So those are like recruiting wins for us when we can get those caliber of players back. And so that's why we're on the lesser side overall, and then with the mindset of, hey, we know we're going to have to take a couple portal guys to just get some experience and, veteran guys who've kind of played some ball as well.
I also kind of want to get your thoughts on the recruiting calendar in general, early signing period in December when a lot's going on in addition, and transfer portal window when your season's still going on. Is that method sustainable? What's kind of your thoughts on the current landscape of the recruiting calendar?
Yeah, current landscape will add a lot of gray hairs on coaches' heads. Championship games, on the road traveling, portal opening with 500 plus kids going in one day. That's hard. And so I think we need to take a hard look at the calendar and see how we can fix that.
Is there a sustainable method? Was it better when it was just one signing period, or what's kind of, if you have any thoughts on how to make it better?
Yeah, I think when the portal was more fluid and not, secluded to those dates, at least then it was more spread out and not 400 or 500 kids going in at a time. And so that made things much easier on the portal end. I think the early signing day is good in December for the high school kids because at least we can go into the holiday season, playoffs, or bowl season in the month of January knowing that at least those guys are secured. I think something that I've talked to my colleagues about is potentially a July 1 signing day. It just, to me, makes sense that you have all these official visits coming in at the month of June, and if they're ready to make their decisions then, why can't they just go ahead and sign? And at least that clears out, another potential group of guys as well.
Obviously, there's a lot of Ohio guys that want to be Buckeyes, that grew up being fans of this program. As they get later in their college or high school careers, they can be frustrated that Ohio State is not looking at them. Obviously, this is not new to Ohio State, but I guess, in conversations with whether it's 2024, 2025 guys that are seeking that Ohio State offer, or high school coaches, how do you kind of get that message of, hey, we are recruiting in-state guys, but we also have this national footprint that to get the best, or the expectation to get the best player possible?
Yeah, we're always going to be trying to sign the best players possible, but the Ohio kids are always going to be on the top of that list in the forefront. So we spend more time evaluating those kids, whether that may be a fault of us, sometimes over-evaluating them. But I can guarantee we spend and do our due diligence going to those high schools more than we can, just to gather as much information and to pretend, we're trying to sign as many Ohio kids as possible. That's a big deal for us, for them growing up here, knowing the culture, most likely be willing to develop, not coming in with a lot of the expectations of I need to play right away. So those are all important factors for us that, in the ideal world, we're going to sign them as many and the best Ohio kids as we can.
Is there, I don't know, because is that a worry, in terms of just keeping that culture alive, to keep Ohio kids in Ohio? Is that one of the main focuses for it, and not exactly say, okay, I want a 5-star athlete? Because there is, I don't know, how do you guys approach kind of your approach to it?
Yeah, same thing. I said, in an ideal world, this year I think we signed 8 of the top 9 or something like that in Ohio. So, we're trying, and now in the NIL world, we're probably going to make that number should be higher. And so we're really going out of our way to spend more time in the state of Ohio and really try to find guys that maybe we don't think are as good here day one, but a couple years into the program we could see a potential developmental guy and who's going to come here for all the right reasons.
Mark, you talked about culture. How much is, you guys are known as a faith-based program. Maybe not on the Clemson level. You don't put it on your sleeve quite that. Is that an advantage? I talked to Larry about it. I know where you stand. Do you, not target guys, but how much is that impact as a positive for recruiting?
Yeah, it's not brought up a ton. Some families will bring it up, and when they do, we certainly address all the stuff we do within our program to talk about that. But a lot of these kids, I think they come from, the ones that we're trying to recruit, come from such high character families who that's part of who they are, and without necessarily bringing it up, but they just come from strong backgrounds and high education and just completely clear character off the field. And so I think a lot of those things bring that faith is part of that.
But they know where you are, right? I mean, they know where you stand. They know where Larry stands. Other guys on the staff.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that we use, like Larry and myself, use our platforms to show that through social media at times, or through when Larry's talking to the team, bringing up some examples. So hopefully they see that that's part of who we are.
And that helps kind of keep the character without getting too right.
Sure, absolutely.
Christianese on it. It helps.
Absolutely.
Okay.
How have you seen the early enrollees in this class kind of transition into kind of life here at Ohio State? And is it kind of what you thought when you were like, yeah, this is the guy we want? Has it matched kind of the expectation that you had?
Yeah, right now they're just kind of running around cones and doing all that. But, as far as a few people have mentioned the strength staff-wise, how long this class is. So that's always one of the things we're looking for is length. And, so far those kids have come in with great attitudes, worked really hard. The Marvin Harrison syndrome is already paying off with the receivers. They're always out here now. The young guys catching balls together with Jelani as well. And so I think as a whole, it's been a great group. Luke was kind of the leader in that class during the cycle, and he's trying to be the leader right now as well with that group. So we're excited. They're great kids, and we think they have a bright future. Hoping a lot of them get to play this year. We think they should.
You mentioned, and obviously from the outside looking in, you say he played that leadership role in acquiring a lot of this 2023 talent. I mean, from the inside, what did that look like? Was he, calling you guys, or were you calling him, say, hey, push on this kid a little bit, we want him? Or what did that kind of look like between you and him?
Yeah, I think he just kind of knew based on, he's reading Twitter as well, and, seeing what's being reported and everything. So, and when he's on campus, for a game, we're like, hey, Luke, this kid's here this weekend. If you don't mind spending some time with him. So Luke was great. He wanted to, build the best class he could as well.
To piggyback on the Ohio stuff, there's the Lukes, the CJs, the Jocks of the world where they do get it early, and it's obvious why they get it early, but then there are the other types of kids who maybe have to wait on it a little bit. Does it sometimes you see kids get frustrated when they do have to wait a little bit to get that offer?
Yeah, I think they do. Some understand more than others, but a great example this past class is Jermaine Matthews. He's probably a little frustrated, but Tim Walton did a great job just building that relationship. Comes to camp, balls out, as he thought he would, and got his offer, and he couldn't be more proud of himself for earning the offer. And you try to tell the stories of the Darren Lees and those guys who came and fought for it. But I get it. Sometimes other schools offer way more easily, hand out high volume of offers compared to us in general, and so that probably makes it a little bit more difficult to feed into their frustrations. But we try to at least educate them and tell them our process and how we do things, and usually they understand.
I guess because you said over evaluation, because they are right down the street and they can come to every camp possible and you see them all the time.
Right.
Is there a balance with that and how you have to kind of approach that?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to over-evaluate and lose a kid, but then sometimes you over-evaluate and you get a kid like Jermaine, as you just mentioned, who's now we're wondering if he can play this year.
Yeah, my biggest worry, I guess, in the state of Ohio, for Ohio kids who can come here so often, is they come here at the end of their sophomore year, going into the junior year, so they're still 15 years old. Their bodies haven't developed, and say they run a bad 40 time. Well, that 40 time may, always be placed on that kid's head for no fault of their own, but they were just young and underdeveloped and not strong enough yet, where you wish you could have had them after their junior year. Now, will they be patient enough to come, or is that going to be too late in the process? So, those are the things you sometimes worry about, is that you may have worked them out at too young of an age, and so that first impression may not have been the real impression.
So that's where the national kids maybe, like Brandon Ennis came here for a camp once, and he's a dude by then, so that's maybe where the national kids benefit in the way that Ohio kids do.
Yeah, and Brandon was here, I think, after his junior year as well. So, again, we saw him, more at his peak. So really just trying to make that decision too early and not eliminate kids too early, based on something where they haven't developed yet.
Last question. How have you seen, I guess, the assistant coaches who are kind of, weren't ingrained in Ohio State, whether it's Perry, whether it's Justin, how have you seen them kind of get involved in Ohio high school football? Like, how have they kind of adapted to, saying, the culture of securing those in-state guys and kind of learning what, what you guys want out of an Ohio kid?
Yeah, just educating them, and just as we're meeting and looking at their board of like, okay, this may be the national kid, but let's put a percentage on what's our chances of really getting this kid. He's probably the best player talent-wise, but and then you're looking at academics, you're looking at character, so you're weighing in all these factors, and you come to the Ohio kid, maybe a little bit, few spots down compared to the national kids, but hey, this kid's really good, he's got upside, he's a great kid, great GPA, great family, right down the road. And so we have those conversations of like how they fit into the national landscape, and so they understand pretty quick, and in today's world we really understand, like some of these national kids, you may make their top 5, but at the end of the day, your top 3 or whatever it is, that could change very quickly. So
yeah, there's a lot of I am a lot thinner, yeah. It's like a little PTSD of I can still hear Fickle yelling at me over in the
James, what were the deciding factors when you put it back to
alma mater. Obviously it's I love the game of football, and I love working with young people, so that's why I got into coaching. You want to impact the kids on the field, but more importantly, you want them to leave after building relationships with them as better men, and as hopefully give them an example of what being a good husband and father can be. The same thing that Luke Fickle did for me, and the same thing Jim Tressel did for me. And so you pair that with your alma mater, you pair that with Columbus, Ohio, and when it became something that could happen, I asked my wife and our girls, and it was pure giddiness at that point that we could be coming back home. So it was a great opportunity, and thankful for Coach Day for providing it.
What did you about coming here, or did you inquire about
Just wanted to know, how much flexibility I would have to help with the linebackers. Obviously, Coach Knowles is, from everything I've heard, a fantastic and brilliant mind. So being able to have an influence on the room, and obviously working, under Coach Knowles will be a big part of that. But I had a lot of responsibility in South Bend with the linebacker room, and look forward to kind of earning everybody's trust, here in the building, and kind of learning his scheme and how he wants to go about things. Yeah. Yeah.
What is it about coaching that made you decide, yes, this is something?
Yeah, the hours are they're tough. Recruiting is a world that you're now being in it for a year. It's a 24/7 deal, and so it takes up a lot of your time. But if you're organized, you can make it all happen and still be a big family person. But I think for coaching, for me, you're impacting young people in the game that you love. I've played this game since I was in 4th grade. I've loved playing it. It's been obviously a deep passion of mine. I loved being still around the game when I was doing media. It was just close enough, to get the juices flowing. And then I had to find out whether I wanted to do it. And so I just took an opportunity, and I'm thankful to Marcus, obviously, for giving me that opportunity and trusting me to put in that work. And you learned a lot about yourself throughout the last year. When you don't have a template for how you want to teach, you really got to start from scratch and all right, how do I want to teach these guys the position? The last time I had talked ball in a locker room setting was when I'm with the New Orleans Saints. So the level of which you can talk football and route concepts and alignments and all that, you have to kind of pair. You forget what they don't know, and then each kid's different, right? You got to teach player A and player B maybe completely differently. So learned a lot about myself as a teacher, and then by the time fall came around, I felt like I was in a good rhythm. He first inquired, if I was something I'd be interested in. I said I have to check with the boss, who is my wife. She was, absolutely, as long as you feel like you'd be happy and have the same kind of impact on the linebacker room that I did up there. And then it just kind of kept going back and forth. He was, you could sense his passion that he really wanted to bring me back, and that he thought the timing was right, and that he really thought that I could help the room and help Coach Knowles out and just kind of be another voice there to kind of help. So I think his determination was kind of the factor of, yeah, this isn't just a, an information call. It's something that they really wanted to get done. So, I hate to let people down just by nature. That's who I am. But it was tough because Marcus and I go back, to freshman year and, in each other's weddings and the whole deal. So thankfully, Marcus was great about it. Basically said, if that's where your heart, if that's where you want to be, and that's where your family wants to be, he's like, then go back home. I was worried that you never know how people will take that. It's a very competitive industry, and I love Coach Freeman, but he was supportive in the sense of we're always going to be, our friendship isn't going to be altered by this, and so we've talked plenty of times since, and so I'm confident that we'll continue to stay close and be fine. Yeah, it did when you pull up to the Woody, and now they got the fingerprint thing now. Before it was something different, but of course it does. It's hit me, and just seeing being back in these colors and being back home, and it's just awesome. It's awesome to be back, and I'm just thankful for the shot, really.
How inspiring is it to see what Brian Hartline has done and
Yeah.
kind of a similar path to what you're taking now?
Brian's done, obviously a great job. To see the growth that he's had, and to see, obviously his recruiting is incredible, but also just the development of that room, and to see him continue to grow has been encouraging. He's a great example of what can happen, and a lot of there's timing issues there as well, and I just love how he has taken every opportunity and he's been ready. Opportunities present themselves as players, as coaches, but you have to be ready for the moment. And he's definitely ready for the moment, and that wide receiver room has taken off, and I know he's excited about the new challenge and the promotion, but it's he's a great example of just a guy who put the work in, willing to go, and a good template for former guys who want to come in and try to work and aspire to kind of grow in this profession.
Do you have a long-term goal of where you want to get to as a coach, or are you just kind of in the moment right now?
No, I think for me, it all starts with, can I be the best linebacker coach in the country? And can I aspire to do that at my alma mater? I think that kind of, to me, is the first thing that comes to mind. And so I'll attack this year with that vision, and already trying to dive in the playbook on Coach Knowles and what he likes to do and the techniques he likes to teach, and just kind of figure out the system in that way. I was joking with Tommy earlier that he might have to install the first few defenses to me, and teach me a little bit, which will help him. Once you are able to teach it, it helps you relearn it. And so, we'll watch some tape together, hopefully next week. And so, it's just how do you go about immersing yourself in all the details of the scheme, and then building from there. And so that's the way I was as a player. I had to know it all, or at least try to know it all, because I was never a player that you take a few false steps, you're going to track somebody down. I had to be on top of it. I had to use anticipation. So just try to use the same mindset, as a coach.
You said that you were
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is the kind of the delineation of duties? He said I'm going to delegate a lot of this position stuff to you.
Yeah, we did some position-specific stuff even today, during the workout. Team run this morning, and it's like, go ahead, go run individual, So I think as long as it's coaching the guys up, that'll be you have to make sure you're always speaking the same language as the D coordinator, especially when he's the linebacker coach. And I did do it a year ago under Al Golden. I was trusted with the linebacker room, but you're making sure you're speaking the language of what you can't be saying stuff that is, contrary to what your boss wants to be taught. So I'm still learning all those things, but from my understanding, it's, hey, really go and attack it and coach the room, so film study, preparation, individual drills, and give him the freedom that he really had the last few years of his career, from my understanding, is the ability to kind of walk around practice and kind of see different areas of the game. Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, Coy did a lot of work with those guys and was able to do, a lot of the individual with Jim. And so, yeah, we'll see. I'm sure this thing will evolve, too, as you go through the spring and you kind of figure out, I mean, you're meeting each other for the first time, you're working together, and I'm just here to support, him in any way possible and kind of see it. If he wants to do it a certain way, well, heck, we'll do it that way. Yeah. Well, it's a huge blessing, and I learned that last year, because the group that I coached at Notre Dame these are guys now that this year they are fifth-year seniors. So they were already guys who had graduated, seen a lot of football. I think that was their third D coordinator. So they had certain knowledge of the game that you could start with. And so the passion was really like, these guys are fine, but it's the young kids who didn't have that experience that you're truly trying to build up. So it'll be fun really just kind of getting to know them as people. And I think when you're a coach of players, you have to invest in them personally. And the more you know them personally, the more you can get out of them. And so I told them today after the workout, I can't wait till my family gets here so they can meet my daughters and that my daughters will wear them out. But you try to bring them into your family, because there will be times during a season when, whether it's something personal in their lives or whether it's the season, like not everything's all hunky-dory, and they got to be able to know that they trust you, and then you're able to push them harder, when they trust you. So
seems like you had said
excited.
Go ahead. You had said that the last time you talked ball was with the Saints, and you're talking to probably a couple 30-year-old linebackers.
Yeah.
Then you have to go. Next time you talk ball, and you're probably talking to 16 and 17-year-olds trying to convince them why they should go to a school. Did you have to learn to fall in love with recruiting over the last year? And when you said that you wanted to see if you liked coaching, how much was that, like, do I want to be a coach? How much was that of the recruiting process?
Recruiting's definitely part of it.
Do you like it?
Yeah, you have to like it. I mean, you got to love it. And recruiting is relationship building. And you're trying to figure out what's important to not only the kid, but what's important to the family. And you just have to be willing to be consistent and build those relationships. And if you're not willing to put in the work and the time to make phone calls, to consistent, like the only thing that I haven't done in recruiting, because I'm a GA technically, is be able to actually go on the road and see high school coaches. But as far as that, like, I met with all of our linebacker recruits as if I was the linebacker coach. So I would have a 30-minute meeting with them, and then I would take them to, the DC/LB coach, and then he'd go to Frye. Like, so I had recruiting presentations. I had ways of connecting with the family. I was responsible for phone calls. So you have to just be consistent in that respect, and really just you're building a friendship and you're getting to know people. And so the way that you always start to like people as you get to know any friend is you have to listen, and you have to ask questions, and you have to be authentic. If you're trying to kind of cut it all short and skip all that, people will find you out really quick.
I think it was like 15, 14 years ago that a linebacker at Ohio State decided that after a national loss, he was coming back for a senior year, probably could have went to the NFL. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
A guy in your room now who kind of did the same thing, big stage, takes a loss, comes back for a senior year, could have went to the NFL. How excited are you to work with Tommy? Obviously Tommy and Steele together, but Tommy in general, there seems to be some similarities there. Does that excite you to be able to work with him?
It does. I'm excited to work with both of them. Just from everything you hear and that I observed today, being at really the first workout that I've been at, is the leadership, just the way they play the game. I've been watching some of the installs, and you see the way Tommy plays the game, the way Steele does. So I'm excited for the whole room. But yeah, there's a little bit of similarity there with Tommy, and I was just letting both those guys know, like, reach out with any questions you have. Don't hold anything back, and It'll take me maybe a little bit to kind of get to the point in the scheme where I can help them. But there will be some stuff instantly that I'll be able to help with running back alignments or tight end splits or things that the offense is trying to attack you, where I've been in their shoes, literally. And I know the issues and where we can get beat and how to protect ourselves in those situations. So I'm excited to work with those guys, but really it's the whole group, and just really you got to earn their trust first, and you got to prove that you care about them, and that's already started.
Building off the recruiting stuff a little bit, when Hartline first got officially hired as the receivers coach, part of that idea from a recruiting standpoint is who better to show you how to be an Ohio State wide receiver than a dude who's done it and walked the path you want to walk.
Yeah.
I don't know if you thought about it that way, but eventually you want to be an assistant coach and keep you to move up this ranks. Is there any part of you that looks at Hartline and go, I can do that exact same thing for a linebacker at Ohio State?
Well, that's the goal. I mean, I'd be lying to you if that wasn't the goal. Ohio State's such a storied program and such a unique place that it should be a wide receiver U, it should be LBU, D-line. Like, you should have all of that. I truly believe that. Now, selfishly, being a linebacker, I believe that any defense stems from having alphas in the linebacker room. I feel like they have to push the whole defense forward. So yeah, that's the end goal. It's a lofty goal, but I mean, when you're at a place like Ohio State, you come here, and once you've lived it, you understand what the standards are. And so it takes a special young man to understand, like, the standard is to win every single game. And sometimes when you're playing teams that aren't up to your talent level, it's not just to win it, but win it impressively. Like, that's the standard of what being a Buckeye is, and that pressure isn't for everybody. So you have to find the right kids, the most talented kids, the kids that fit, want to be mentally and physically tough, and then try to get them to come here. But it's a lot more natural, obviously, when it's somewhere where you've played, and Ohio State, to a degree, sells itself. But when you have somebody who's been in it, walked through it, gone through the same stresses. Times change, all that change. Social media, I get all that. I'm not naive to all that, but it's still the same. It's the same stuff as a young man that what you're going through. So I can relate, to a lot of these young men and what they're going through, and I can help kids who haven't been here, that want to come up and visit, give them an absolute, honest perspective of what it's like to play here.
And from just a talent standpoint, what you've gotten a chance to see from CJ, does he remind you of anybody? Just kind of your initial thoughts on a kid coming to his second year?
I mean, just a ton of talent, unbelievable movement skills, looks the part, and just really excited to get to know him and to continue to work with him, because you can see the talent there. I mean, it just pops on the field, and kind of the way he moves, and just watching him run today was impressive. So there's a lot of facets to playing LB, but when you looked at all the guys and you're like, man, yeah, he's an impressive looking kid, and so I'm excited to get to work once spring ball starts.
You're not able to go on the road recruiting, but you still have to navigate the NIL highway.
Yeah.
How are you adjusting to that? How is this maybe different? I hate to compare one place to another, but it's different, at an ND to here, and how do you do it?
I mean, really, you're pushing along those conversations really up the chain. Okay. That's what we did there at Notre Dame, and that's what here. I mean, it's only been a few days since I've been back, but it's one of those things where, like, as a grad assistant, I can't guarantee anything. So it's obviously a constantly evolving thing in college football right now, and you're always trying to figure out what's real, what's not. Does it even matter? There's a whole lot that goes on with it. And so all I know, like, when it comes to that, I don't really try to worry too much about the NIL aspect. I try to worry more about, like, do I have an honest enough relationship with this kid and his family to where he trusts me to develop him? And then if that's a factor in his decision, the power of Ohio State will come through.
I'm curious, just logistically, I don't know, maybe you've answered this. Did you have a place in South Bend? Did you rent? I mean,
No, we sold the house here, moved there,
Wow.
and now we got to do it all over again.
Okay, I didn't know. Like,
Yeah, I'll drive back tonight because we're off tomorrow on Friday, so I'll go back tonight and see my family and enjoy the weekend with them, and then come back late Sunday night. It's like deja vu, doing it all, but I was doing it the other way. I was doing it the other way last year, so.
Do you want to live in the same area, or are you guys looking at a different area?
You know, we're all over the place right now with it, whether to rent for a few months or, you know, to where more homes pop up. To, yeah, I would assume it'd be in the same area. You know, we were out in Dublin, kind of the Dublin-Powell area, but inventory is limited at this time, so. Mm-hmm.
Did he run or did he speak? Because Jim said that some of his first conversations were just in the
Yeah, no, it was we first text communicated, and I asked him to put me in a group chat with all the guys, just to introduce myself to everybody and become available, and obviously get their numbers. But no, we've talked. Just basically shared his excitement to learn from me as much as he can, and I just told him, like, look, I'm looking forward to getting to know each other and to putting that time in the film room and studying the game, and we'll just kind of see where this whole thing goes. But told him that I really respect him as a player from everything I know from afar, and the more you watch, the more you're just impressed. So I'm just excited to continue to dive into all the tape and kind of see maybe where I can help, and to then, heck, in the areas where he's strong, just continue to build on what he's already accomplished. Oh, I don't remember. Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's not the most long-winded, but even today he's like, hey, whenever you want to watch tape, you know, let's get after it. So there's not much fluff, which could be a good thing.
You mentioned about how different this job could have been for you if Tommy and Steele had decided to not come back. I mean, would it have changed your mind?
I'm not sure it would have changed my mind, to be honest with you, because, you know, there's only one place that's home, you know. So having an opportunity to coach back where you were living, in a place where you played, your alma mater, it's just so easy and natural to sell it, you know, to people who are coming in and to pour your energy into it. And not that I didn't. I mean, I poured everything into Notre Dame while I was there, and I was blessed with a really mature, really good room of linebackers and guys that I'll be fans of, I mean, as their careers develop. But it wouldn't have affected my decision, because ultimately it's the place and the people and the opportunity here at your alma mater is what drew me.
Generally speaking, what do you think about the 4-2-5, having two starting linebackers? I know you guys are going to mix things up, but what do you think about the 4-2-5?
Well, to be honest, I know that after talking to Hartline and a bunch of people about the scheme, is that it's difficult to go against, you know, and there's a lot to it. I was talking with Coach Walton about it, because I played for Coach Walton when I was with the Rams. So Coach Walton was my DC for a year, and so we've had conversations about it. And I love how attacking it can be. I love how things can be grouped together and can appear to be very complex to the offense, but once you get it down, very simple. The hard thing for me is, like, you know me, Dave. I want to dive in and know the ins and outs of everything, and it's like day 3. And so it's like I have to calm myself down and be like, it's okay. It's going to take a little time to truly chew it up and spit it out, but I'm excited to keep learning it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times, to be honest, when we were at Notre Dame, we played so much sub or nickel defense anyway. It was a Mike and a Will in the field. And I think that's where just college football has gone, is that it's so spread out. People are trying to stretch you horizontally and vertically. So it's funny. I was talking to Steve Spagnuolo, who was my head coach at the Rams, who's now DC with the Chiefs, last year, and I said, any advice as I get into this? And he said, coach offense. It's getting too hard to he said it's too hard to coach defense in football anymore. So that joke has always kind of stuck with me.
You mentioned that you sold your house here. I mean, would you have ever guessed a year ago that you'd be back here now?
No, but this profession is unpredictable at times, And what I've learned from being, a part of a staff is there are so many moving parts, and timing plays a factor, and it's just hard to predict, when is the right time to go somewhere. But I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have. If you would have said, "Hey, you're going to move to South Bend, Indiana, and then come right back," I would have said yeah, I would have rented, and then it would have been no way. I'm not sure there's a path for how that would become available. So the timing was right, and I'm thankful it's here.
James, Coach Day said there were conversations before you took the job.
Mm-hmm.
What were those conversations like? He said he wanted to make sure you were ready
Yeah.
to be a coach.
Yeah.
I think he referred to it as crazy enough to be a
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do it? Obviously you didn't need to, and what were those conversations like at that point?
We had conversations about opportunities here before, and timing is a part of it. Sometimes there's not places on a staff and look, you certainly, and after being in it for a year, there are a lot of people that go into a staff, and guys who do very critical, important roles that you can't just say, hey, no, just create a spot or move. It has to be a timing to it. And so, I had tried, and we'd had conversations, and he did say that, are you crazy enough to do this? And Coach Fickle had said some of the same things when I talked to Luke. I think 3 years ago, he had said, are you sure you really want to get in this thing? And, when I talked to Luke initially, and then it's I think so, and then you go back, but there was something itching in me to where it's I had to find out. I'm otherwise I'll look back. I'll be too old to not have connections to get in there and try it. And so it just happened that Marcus, I talked to Marcus before, even when he was just D coordinator, and I just said to him simply, if you had any opening on your defensive staff, let me know. I'll be willing to move to South Bend and try it out. And then he gets named head coach, and it became a little easier for him to get me in there. And I just wanted to prove to people everywhere that I wanted to embrace the grind of it all. And so it is what it is.
Was the itch? Just how did it match up to what you expected last year?
The hours were the same as I anticipated. You knew how busy you were going to be. Just really, it was figuring out the most unique thing was just figuring out how you're going to teach and how you wanted to start teaching. Because you think you can start with hey, here's our base defense, here's what you got, here's where we're going to align, here's what we're going to look at, here are the adjustments. But then you don't realize that some young kids, when you say, hey, align in a 30, they look at you what the heck is a 30? And you're oh my gosh, I'm trying to teach you about wide receiver splits and what routes to expect, and all. You got to start with the basics. And you got to make sure, so I'll never assume anymore with young players that they know what an A, B, C, D gap is or what you mean by certain terminology. So you start there, not to insult their intelligence, but then you start to build upon that. And so you just got to figure out how you teach, how you're going to approach it. And then certain guys need more love, and certain guys need a little more kind of kick in the rear end, to get going and motivated. Everyone's different. And so you're trying to learn personalities too, which I think now is fun, because you're trying to figure out how do I motivate player A versus player B, and then some guys like player C, I don't need to motivate him. He's self-motivated. He's gonna do everything you ask. So.
James, was there a primary itch? Was it of wanting to teach what you spent years learning, etc.? Was it wanting to be part of being on the inside of something from the other vantage point? Did you miss, like Chris Dillon said when he took the Lions deal?
Yeah.
He just wanted to be part of something that on Sunday there's a W or an L involved, and he missed that aspect, that competitive aspect of it. What drove you most to get into this?
Well, it's wanting to impact young people, but it's also being a part of something bigger than yourself. There were aspects of sports media that I enjoyed thoroughly, to be honest with you, but then there was parts where it's at the end of the day, I wanted to be a part of a team again. And when you're a part of a team, you're a part of a broader community to accomplish something great. And so it's that passionate drive of competition where there's a winner and a loser, similar to what Spiels is talking about.
Yeah.
And so you want to get in and really try to So it's like the best of both worlds. We can go out there, we can compete, and our job is to win football games and to win them all, and sometimes win them impressively. But at the end of the day, it's also, will some of these young linebackers or even the older guys, will they leave here with someone in their life that they can say, you know what, not only did Coach Laurinaitis teach me ball, but he taught me what it's like to be a good father and a good husband. And you hope that now they're able to go on and then help them realize the power of Ohio State. And you can set yourself up for the next 40 years after ball. Hopefully every guy that comes through plays for 10 years in the league. But I can share with them, like, I lived my dream out for 8 years. I retired at 30. There's a lot of life left, you know? So the then what, whether you play 10 or whether you're just, hey, I'm here at Ohio State for 4 years, utilize the power of the brand and the network and the connections to set yourself up for the next 40 years after that. And so hopefully I can help them see that.
Did this past year also set you up to know when to speak up and when not? You understand what I'm saying? Meaning,
yeah.
Or you being part of a staff,
yeah,
being a lower member on the staff, it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it?
It is. I just like to, you know, you see it from the player's perspective naturally, because every time, even when I look at a scheme, I'm learning it from, I always look at it from the backers out. It's just naturally, it's what I'm gonna go to. And so whenever there's something put in and maybe you didn't think about it versus this formation, you just kindly, okay, well, what's the check versus this?
Yeah.
And then it's silent, and then you just kind of let them talk about it. And then you're like, okay, what's the check versus this? Or you have a pressure based on the back. Well, what if the back's not offset and he's behind the quarterback? And there's silence. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it stirs, like, so there's a way you look at it, and some of the other coaches do it too. Like, if you're a corners coach, you're like, hold on a second, you want me to do this? So it's just, you try to poke the issues that can come up or just be unspoken of. And most of the time they're found, but, you know, and I did the same thing as a player. You know, I would wear guys like myself out, you know, our GAs and QCs, because, you know, you look at the playbook pages and you're like, well, they better match up to what we're doing, because I was like, I need to know what we're doing. I need to know where I'm going. Otherwise, I'm not making the play. I wasn't going to be out here running a 4-4 or anything. I had to step right.
October 28th, you guys go to Wisconsin. What's that going to be like for you?
Oh, it's going to be, it'll be interesting to see, you know, it'll be fun. I mean, Wisconsin's a great place to play. And then let alone with Luke being there, and who's obviously such a huge mentor to me. And I mean, Luke Fickell got so much out of me as a player and pushed me so far past what I thought I could achieve, that really is a lot of the inspiration for, you know, coaching, is trying to get kids to, like, they don't even know where they can go or how good they can be. And so he won't be fun to, like, you're not going to be able to say hi to him before the game. He's too competitive. It'll have to be a post-game thing.
You don't think you made him?
No, I think Luke made himself, man. I think Luke, he was the same way with AJ, who was a guy that I certainly looked up to as a freshman. I mean, AJ Hawk to me still is, like, AJ Hawk's a dude. And so I think, you know, Luke always had guys that he just continued to develop and got the most out of them.
Okay, we've got to wrap it up. James, thank you
Yep.
so much.
Yep.